Chapter 1, My Friend. One Naruto Uzumaki was packing his backpack. As he was doing so, his left shoulder pulsed with pain. Naruto gripped his shoulder while muttering a string of curses. Stupid curse mark. Why the hell did Orochimaru place it on me instead of Sasuke? Wasn't Sasuke his original target? Naruto asked as he dropped to one knee. His eyes widened, however, when he remembered Orochimaru's exact words. Flashback. Naruto had managed to block the giant snake from getting a paralyzed Sasuke. Naruto, Sasuke asked. Naruto then looked at Sasuke, revealing that his hair was wilder than usual. His whisker marks were darker and bolder, and his once cerulean blue eyes were now blood red with slits for pupils. "You okay, scaredy cat?" Naruto asked, quoting Sasuke's very same question that he asked during Team 7's first C-rank turned A-rank mission. Sasuke watched in shock as Naruto easily pushed the snake back before jumping atop its head and stabbing its head with his claw-like nails and raking it down its back as he ran at Orochimaru. As he neared Orochimaru, Naruto jumped off the snake. The snake summoner looked on with intrigue. Naruto has become quite powerful, even more powerful than Sasuke, and with nine-tailed fox inside of him, he could become even stronger. Orochimaru thought. As Naruto descended on Orochimaru, the sound ninja jumped back, causing Naruto to hit the tree branch. Orochimaru then appeared on another tree branch as he smiled a crooked smile. The Sharingan pales in comparison to the Nine-Tails' power. He will make a better vessel for me than Sasuke. Orochimaru thought. Having made up his mind, he formed three hand seals. Naruto quickly recovered and turned toward the tree branch Orochimaru was perched on. "Hold still, you snake bastard!" Naruto angrily yelled. Well done, Naruto. You passed with flying colors," Orochimaru said. Naruto gave Orochimaru a confused look. "What do you mean pass?" Naruto asked. Orochimaru continued to smile his crooked smile. "You have proven to me that you are superior to Sasuke, that the power of the Nine-Tails is far more powerful than the Sharingan. So now I've decided to leave you with a gift," Orochimaru said. Suddenly, Orochimaru's neck extended before he reached Naruto and bit the left side of his neck. Naruto screamed in agony. "Curse mark of Heaven's seal," Orochimaru muttered before he retracted his neck. Naruto dropped to his knees as he grabbed where Orochimaru bit him. Naruto's features returned to normal as the pain coursed through his body. "Naruto!" Sasuke screamed as he threw several shuriken at Orochimaru, but the snake easily deflected the shuriken. Sasuke then looked toward Sakura. "Sakura, you go tend to Naruto while I hold off this guy," Sasuke ordered the pinkette. "Okay," Sakura said before jumping over to the branch Naruto was on. Sasuke then glared at Orochimaru. "What the hell did you do to Naruto?" Sasuke angrily asked. Orochimaru chuckled. "I merely gave him a little gift," Orochimaru said as he began to sink into the tree branch he was standing on. Sasuke quickly jumped toward the branch. "Stop," Sasuke ordered. "My name is Orochimaru. Should you wish to meet me again, then you had best get through this exam," Orochimaru said before completely submerging in the branch just as Sasuke landed on it. Sakura, meanwhile, reached Naruto as the blonde continued to scream in pain. She then looked at the spot to find that the three holes which showed that Naruto had been bitten changed into the three tomos of a Sharingan. Flashback end. Naruto shook off the pain that the curse mark always inflicted and finished packing. Lastly, Naruto undid his headband before placing it in a shuriken pouch and placed the picture of Team 7 in his backpack. He then put his backpack on before opening his window and jumping out. Meanwhile, Sakura was walking home. As she was walking, she couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was going to happen tonight. She then looked up and stopped dead in her tracks as she saw one Naruto Uzumaki walking towards her. She also noticed that he had his backpack, and he wasn't wearing his headband, which was strange considering she hardly ever saw him without it. Now that she thought about it, the first time she ever saw him without it, and him still being awake, too, was after Orochimaru had branded him with the curse mark. Flashback. Sakura had managed to pull Naruto and Sasuke under a tree. Sasuke being unconscious due to chakra exhaustion and Naruto being unconscious due to the curse mark, before she was attacked by 3 sound ninja named Dosu, Zaku, and Kin. Lee had come to her rescue, but sadly he was no match for Dosu's sound-style jutsu. Even teams 8 and 10 came to help, but their efforts proved futile against the sound ninja. When Kin grabbed Sakura by her hair, the pinkette was forced to use a kunai to cut her hair to get free. However, everyone's attention was drawn toward where Sasuke and Naruto lay due to the air becoming thick and hard to breathe. Sakura's eyes widened at what she saw. There stood Naruto with more unruly hair, claw-like nails, darker whisker marks, fang-like canines, and crimson eyes with slits for pupils. But he also had black flame-like tattoos along the left half of his face and body. Sakura, who did this to you? Naruto, Ninetales chakra / curse mark first state, asked as red and purple chakra swirled around him. He then looked toward the 3 sound ninja and glared. Shit, his curse mark awakened. Dosu cursed. Naruto then appeared behind Dosu before grabbing his arms and pulling back. How dare you hurt my friends? I'll make you suffer, Naruto said as he continued to pull on Dosu's arms. Arg, stop, please, Dosu screamed in pain. Naruto continued to pull until a loud cracking sounded through the area. Naruto then let go of Dosu's arms, allowing the sound ninja to fall to the ground. Zaku dashed at Naruto, but the Ninetales Jinchuriki disappeared, causing Zaku to stop. Where are you, you bastard? Zaku yelled. Suddenly, Naruto appeared in front of Zaku and punched him in the jaw, sending him flying into a tree. Naruto then turned his attention on Kin. The sound Kunoichi was paralyzed with fear at seeing her teammates get taken down so easily. Naruto then started walking towards Kin. Sakura couldn't believe what she was seeing. This wasn't the loudmouth, knucklehead ninja she knew. This new Naruto was more vicious and uncaring. Being unable to watch any longer as Naruto was being consumed by his new power, Sakura ran toward him and wrapped her arms around him from behind, causing Naruto to stop in his tracks. Naruto looked back at Sakura with surprise evident in his eyes. Sakura? Naruto asked. Sakura looked at Naruto with tear-filled eyes. Stop, Naruto. Please. This isn't you. This isn't the Naruto I know. I can't stand to see you act this way. Please stop, Sakura cried. Upon seeing Sakura's tears, Naruto's K9's whisker marks and nails returned to normal, and the curse mark receded back to its original position on his neck. Lastly, his pupils changed back to normal as his eyes changed back to their original cerulean blue. Flashback end. Naruto walked past Sakura, waking her from her thoughts. What are you doing out this late, Naruto? Sakura asked. Naruto stopped in his tracks, but didn't respond. When he didn't answer, Sakura became worried. Naruto, Sakura asked. Go home, Sakura. It's none of your business, Naruto said. Sakura was taken aback by Naruto's response, but quickly recovered before glaring at the blonde. What do you mean it isn't my business? You're my teammate and friend, remember? Of course it's my business, Sakura replied angrily. When Naruto didn't respond with a comeback, Sakura's anger disappeared. Why do you have your backpack? Sakura asked. Naruto said nothing as Sakura tried to get him to answer. Tears welled up in Sakura's eyes as she began to realize what Naruto was doing. Where are you going, Naruto? Sakura asked as she tried to fight the tears threatening to spill out. Again, Naruto didn't answer. Answer me, you idiot, Sakura yelled as she swung a fist at Naruto. However, the blonde held up his hand and grabbed Sakura's fist, stopping the attack and surprising the pinkette. I'm done being your punching bag, Sakura, Naruto said with no sign of emotion in his voice and still not turning to face Sakura. The pinkette couldn't fight the tears any longer and allowed them to spill out. Why are why you leaving? Sakura asked. Why do you care? Wouldn't it be easier for you to win Sasuke's heart if I weren't here? Naruto answered with his own question. But we're all on the same team. You can't just leave. I don't want you to leave. Sakura confessed. At this, Naruto turned around and looked at Sakura with seriousness in his eyes. Didn't you say, when we did introductions with Kakashi-sensei, that you hated me? Naruto asked. Why should you care? Sakura's eyes widened as she remembered saying that the day Team 7 was formed. But I didn't know you that well back then. I've regretted saying that since that day. Sakura said. Naruto then let go of Sakura's hand and turned away. There's nothing left for me in a village where everyone hates me for something I had no control over, Naruto said. He then proceeded to try walking away, but Sakura quickly reached her hand out and grabbed Naruto's hand. What about your dream to become Hokage? Are you just going to give up on that? Sakura asked as the tears kept coming. Naruto just looked over his shoulder at Sakura. How can I be Hokage of a village that will hate me no matter what? Naruto asked. Sakura's eyes widened as she loosened her grip on Naruto's hand. Naruto removed his hand from Sakura's before turning completely away from the pinkette. Goodbye, Sakura, said Naruto as he started walking away. Take me with you, Sakura blurted out, causing Naruto to stop dead in his tracks. You don't mean that, Naruto said. Yes, I do. If you won't listen to me and stay, then I'll go with you, Sakura said. You've got a mom and dad who love you. Do you think you could honestly abandon them? Naruto asked. Sakura opened her mouth to answer, but found she couldn't. Goodbye, Sakura, Naruto said as he attempted to leave again. If you leave, I'll scream, Sakura threatened. Suddenly, Naruto disappeared, causing Sakura to go wide-eyed. Sakura, thank you, Naruto, who had reappeared behind Sakura, said before tapping her on the back of her neck. Naruto, Sakura said before losing consciousness. As she fell forward, Naruto appeared in front of Sakura and caught the pinkette. He then lifted her into his arms before disappearing. Later, the Sound Four, consisting of Sakan/Yukon, Kumo, Jirobo, and Tayuya, were at Lone Pine Hill waiting for Orochimaru's chosen one. When is that bastard going to get here? Tayuya asked as she began to lose her patience. Calm down, Tayuya. He will be here soon. Sakan/Yukon tried to keep Tayuya as calm as possible. Just then, Naruto appeared, causing the Sound Four to go on the defensive. Relax, it's just me, Naruto said. The Sound Four lowered their guard as they saw it was Naruto. You little fucker. You should know better than to sneak up on people as strong as us. We could have killed you within a second, Tayuya warned. Naruto scoffed. As if, Naruto said. Let's go. Sakan/Yukon, however, stopped Naruto. First, take this, Sakan/Yukon said as he handed Naruto a strange-looking black pill. What's this? Naruto asked. As of right now, your curse mark is only in its first stage, and it takes years to achieve the second stage. This pill, however, was developed by Lord Orochimaru to accelerate the process. However, you'll have to die first, Sakan/Yukon explained. Naruto gave Sakan/Yukon a surprised look. What do you mean? Naruto asked. Sakan/Yukon chuckled. That pill was designed to cause the one who takes it to enter a death-like state. If you come out of it, then you should be able to access the second stage of the curse mark, Sakan/Yukon explained. Naruto, figuring he had nothing left to lose, took the pill. A few seconds later, Naruto collapsed to the ground. Come on, let's get him in the urn and get him to Lord Orochimaru, said Jirobo. The next morning, Sakura Haruno awoke in a panic to find that she was in her room, in her bed. How did I dash? Sakura began to ask before remembering her confrontation with Naruto. Sakura, thank you. Those words rang in her head as she kept playing the events back in her head. Are you finally waking up? Inner Sakura asked. What are you talking about? Finally waking up to what? Sakura thought. To the fact that you don't love Sasuke, and that in truth, you actually love Naruto. Duh. Inner Sakura answered. Sakura's eyes widened in surprise. I do not love Naruto. I love Sasuke. Sakura thought. She could tell that her inner self rolled her eyes. That is total BS. If that were true, then why did you try to stop him from leaving? Huh? If you didn't love him, then you could have just let him leave, but you didn't. You tried to stop him because you couldn't imagine a life without him. Inner Sakura explained. Sakura tried to make an excuse, but found she couldn't because she realized she really couldn't picture a life without the blonde knucklehead. Her eyes widened to the size of dinner plates as she finally realized that her inner self was right. All the time she had spent on Team 7 with Naruto had caused her feelings for Sasuke to change to a more brotherly/sisterly type, while her feelings for Naruto had changed from seeing him as just a friend to feelings of true love. That explained why she tried to stop him from leaving instead of letting him go, and why she was so upset when he wouldn't listen to reason. As quick as she could, Sakura jumped off her bed, slipped on her ninja sandals, and jumped out of the window toward the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower. Tsunade Senju, the fifth Hokage and the slug Sannin, was sitting at her desk distraught at the news that had come in at dawn. Flashback. Tsunade was sitting at her desk while filling out paperwork, lest she be on the receiving end of her disciple Shizun's nagging for not working. As she was filling out another file, Shizun came rushing in. Lady Tsunade, Shizun shouted. The busty Kage sighed as she looked up at her apprentice. I haven't had any sake in 2 days, Shizun, so relax. Tsunade said with a look of boredom. Shizun shook her head. It's not that. It's about Naruto. He's left the village, Shizun exclaimed. Tsunade's eyes widened in shock at the news. And Naruto has left the village? Tsunade thought. Tsunade's whole body went numb as she registered what Shizun just said. Shizun, however, was worried as she saw Tsunade wasn't moving, but was clearly in shock. Lady Tsunade? Lady Tsunade? Lady Tsunade? Shizun shouted the last part, trying to get the slug Sannin's attention. Without warning, Tsunade stood straight up, causing the chair to fall back. Get Shikamaru in here immediately. Tsunade ordered/shouted as she slammed her fists on the desk. Flashback end. Tsunade massaged the bridge of her nose. How did this happen? Naruto has always been a bright and cheery boy. His dream was to become Hokage, but now he's left the village. What happened to you, Naruto? Tsunade thought. The fifth Hokage then thought back to hers and Jiraiya's battle with Orochimaru. Flashback. Naruto was standing in front of Tsunade, who was kneeling on one knee. What do you think you can do? I'm far stronger than you. Kabuto taunted. Tsunade looked toward Kabuto and then back at Naruto. Just get out of here, Naruto, Tsunade ordered. No way. I never go back on my word. That's my ninja way. Naruto shouted. Kabuto growled in frustration. I'll end your pathetic ninja way here. Kabuto yelled as he ran at Naruto with his hands cloaked in blue chakra that took the shape of blades. As he ran, he took out a kunai. As Kabuto got close, Tsunade closed her eyes. When she heard the sound of the kunai piercing skin, she opened her eyes only for them to go wide with shock. Naruto had caught Kabuto's hand that had the kunai in it, but the kunai had pierced through the middle of his left hand. Naruto then held out his right hand before a shadow clone appeared and placed both its hands over Naruto's right hand. Naruto's headband fell off as the wind swept around him. Within a second, a ball of blue chakra formed in his right hand before the clone dispelled. The curse mark then overtook the left side of Naruto's body and face as the jutsu turned purple in color. That can't be Dash, Kabuto said before being interrupted. Rasengan, Naruto, curse mark first state, shouted before slamming the purple Rasengan into Kabuto's stomach. The sound spy was sent flying back before hitting a boulder. Tsunade's eyes widened at the sight before her. That moron managed to master the Rasengan? Incredible, Tsunade thought. Suddenly, Naruto fell to his knees before landing face first on the ground. Tsunade quickly moved towards a genin before rolling him on his back. She then unzipped his orange and blue jumpsuit jacket before placing both hands on his chest. Green chakra soon encased her hands as Tsunade began treating Naruto's injuries. She watched as the black flame-like tattoos of the curse mark receded back into the three-tomoed shape mark on the left side of Naruto's neck. Suddenly, Jiraiya appeared beside Tsunade, followed by Orochimaru appearing beside Kabuto as the sound spy pulled himself out of the indention he made upon making contact with the boulder. Jiraiya, this mark on Naruto's neck is dashed, Tsunade said as she looked up at Jiraiya. I know. The curse mark, Jiraiya said without taking his eyes off Orochimaru. The snake Sannin chuckled, causing Tsunade to look toward him. I gave him that mark for showing me that he had become more powerful than Sasuke, Orochimaru said. Tsunade glared at her former comrade. Soon I will have the power of a tailed beast, Orochimaru said as he started chuckling. At that moment, Tsunade stood up. I've heard enough from you, Orochimaru. I'll die before I let you touch Naruto, Tsunade said as she began flying through hand signs. Jiraiya quickly began forming hand signs as well. Orochimaru looked toward Kabuto. Kabuto, do it, Orochimaru said. Kabuto nodded his head as he too began forming hand signs. Suddenly, all three bit their right thumb before slamming their right hands on the ground. A seal appeared on the ground underneath their hands. Summoning Jutsu. All three shouted before smoke billowed out of the seals. When the smoke cleared, it revealed the slug summon, Katsu, the toad summon, Gamabunta, and the snake summon, Manda. Orochimaru chuckled. Just like old times, Orochimaru said with his crooked grin. Tsunade and Jiraiya glared at Orochimaru. As of today, we are Sannin no more. Tsunade yelled the last part. Flashback end. Tsunade sighed as she looked out the window at the village. I won't let you go that easily. I still have that bet on you becoming Hokage, idiot, Tsunade thought. A knock at the office door stirred Tsunade from her thoughts. Come in, Tsunade ordered. The door then opened to reveal Shikamaru. You summoned me, Lady Hokage? Shikamaru asked while looking at Tsunade through tired eyes. I apologize for waking you so early, but I'm afraid it can't wait, Tsunade said. Shikamaru gave Tsunade a confused look. What is it? Shikamaru asked. Meanwhile, Sakura was jumping along the rooftops, trying to get to the Hokage Tower as quickly as she could. I have to hurry. I can't let Naruto be taken away. He has to be brought back so I can tell him how I truly feel about him, Sakura thought as she pushed as much chakra as she could into her legs to speed up. Soon she arrived at the Hokage Tower and ran inside and up to the Hokage office door. She stopped at the door and held her hand up, getting ready to knock when she heard a voice. What? Naruto has left the village to join Orochimaru, a male voice asked, to which Sakura recognized as Shikamaru. That's correct. For what reasons I don't know, but this will be an S-rank retrieval mission. Odds are Orochimaru has some of his top men escorting Naruto to wherever his hideout is. You and a squad of ninja will pursue the Sound Ninja who have him, retrieve Naruto Uzumaki, and bring him back home to the Leaf. Understand? Sakura heard Tsunade say. Yeah, Shikamaru's voice said. You can pick whoever you want for the squad. Tsunade's voice said. I've got just the people in mind. Shikamaru's voice said. Sakura heard Tsunade chuckle. The mission begins as soon as you have assembled your squad. Dismissed, Tsunade's voice said. Sakura quickly made her way down the hall to make it appear as though she had just arrived before the door to the office opened, and Shikamaru came out before running past her. Eve gota heri, Sakura thought as she ran after Shikamaru. Later at the gate, Shikamaru, Kiba, and Akamaru, Choji, Neji, and Sasuke were gathered at the Hidden Leaf Gate. I still can't believe Naruto left the village, Choji said. Kiba nodded his head. Yeah, who would have thought? Kiba said. Sasuke, however, was lost in thought as he tried wrapping his mind around what was happening. I can't believe the dobe left. He always swore he would protect his village, but now he's abandoning the very village he swore to protect. Sasuke thought. He was snapped from his thoughts when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Sasuke looked and saw that the hand belonged to Neji. Don't worry, we'll get Naruto back. Naruto spent so much time saving others from the darkness that he became consumed in it. Now he is waiting for someone to save him from that same darkness. Neji said, "But what if we can't stop him?" Sasuke asked. "If anyone can pierce through the darkness Naruto is immersed in, it's you." Neji said. Sasuke nodded his head in understanding. "All right, our target is Naruto. If the Sound try to stop us, we're to take care of them. But as I said before, our main goal is retrieving Naruto," Shikamaru said. However, when they were about to leave, Sasuke felt a presence close by. Just then, Sakura appeared. "Sakura, what are you doing here?" Sasuke asked as he approached the Pinkette, whose head was bent down slightly, so her bangs concealed her eyes. Please," Sakura said. Sasuke gave her a look of confusion before he noticed tears hitting the ground in front of Sakura's feet. The Pinkette looked up at Sasuke with tear-filled eyes. Please bring Naruto back to me, please. This is my once-in-a-lifetime request," Sakura said as she hugged herself in a futile attempt to stop herself from crying. Sasuke turned away from Sakura. That loser will come back either willingly or by me dragging his ass back. Count on it," Sasuke said, causing Sakura to look at him with eyes wide in surprise. "Consider it my promise of a lifetime." Sakura smiled a small smile as she watched the Naruto retrieval team head out to get Naruto and bring him home. And I'm going to skip to the battle at the final valley. If you want to read about Neji, Shikamaru, Choji, and Kiba's battle with the Sound, then please wait until I release Naruto Chronicles V.2 Volume 5, or rent Naruto Volumes 23, 24, and 25 of the Logan County Library, which is next door to the IGA and Dollar Mart. Final Valley. Naruto was standing atop the head of the statue of Madara Uchiha when Sasuke arrived and landed atop the head of the statue of the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. "Naruto!" Sasuke shouted in an attempt to get Naruto's attention. Naruto, seemingly ignoring Sasuke, then started walking away. "Are you just going to ignore me, Naruto?" Sasuke asked, causing Naruto to stop in his tracks. "What do you want, Sasuke?" Naruto asked without turning toward the Uchiha. "I want you to stop this and come back to the village with me," Sasuke said. Naruto just chuckled. "And who would be there waiting for me? I don't have a family. The villagers hate my guts, and the only girl I've ever loved hates me," Naruto said. Sasuke gritted his teeth. "Sakura doesn't hate you. She begged me to bring you back to her," Sasuke argued. Naruto then turned toward Sasuke, causing the Uchiha's eyes to widen in shock. The curse mark had covered the left side of Naruto's face, but Naruto's left eye was now black with a gold iris. "She wants me to come back? Only so she has a punching bag to hit while trying to win you over. No thanks, I'll pass," Naruto, curse mark first state, said as he turned to walk away. Suddenly, Naruto found himself on his back with Sasuke standing over him with his right hand clenched in a fist and cocked back. Sasuke then swung and punched Naruto in the face, causing the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki's head to jerk to the right. The curse mark receded and Naruto's left eye returned to normal as he looked at Sasuke, as if the punch didn't faze him in the slightest. "You're coming back to the leaf, even if I have to drag you back," Sasuke said angrily. Naruto just smirked. "Let's see you try," Naruto said. Instantly, Naruto pulled back his legs and kicked Sasuke, sending the Uchiha sailing through the air and falling all the way to the water below. Sasuke quickly righted himself and landed on the water's surface while pushing chakra to the soles of his sandals to stand on the water. "Kakashi, Sakura, do they mean anything to you anymore, Naruto?" Sasuke asked. Naruto jumped off of Madara's statue and landed on the water's surface across from Sasuke. They used to at one point. They were proof that someone actually cared, but now I have but one reason to live. Naruto said, earning a questioning look from Sasuke. What do you mean? Sasuke asked. Naruto chuckled. Haha, I mean that I need power so I can get the truth about the Nine-Tails attack from Itachi. I never would have gotten it if I stayed in the leaf. Naruto explained. If you go to Orochimaru, then he'll just take over your body. Sasuke said. If it happens, it happens. So long as I get the truth, then nothing else matters. Naruto said, causing Sasuke to go wide-eyed from shock. What had happened to the carefree, knucklehead ninja that he used to know? The one whose ninja way was to never break a promise. Sasuke gritted his teeth. I don't know why you're like this, Naruto, but I won't let you go. Sasuke yelled the last part before pulling out a kunai and tossing it at Naruto. The Uzumaki quickly pulled out his own kunai and tossed it at Sasuke. The two kunai met in the middle and hit each other before the two Genin ran at each other and punched each other's fist. Hidden Leaf Village. Sakura was in her room looking at the picture of Team 7 that was taken after their first successful mission. Naruto and Sasuke were glaring at each other, with Kakashi standing behind them with one of his signature smiles and his hands on their heads, and Sakura was standing between them smiling. Tears hit the glass cover on the picture as memories of Team 7 flooded Sakura's mind. The mission to the Land of Waves, the Chunin exams, the battle against Gaara, Itachi, and Kisame's infiltration of the Leaf, Naruto's departure. As the memories kept coming, Sakura held the picture close to her heart. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura whispered sadly. Final Valley. Storm clouds had gathered over the Final Valley as Sasuke and Naruto's battle raged on. The two were completely even. Neither of them could deal a blow to the other without receiving an injury themselves. Again and again their fists met either rock or each other. Naruto formed the index and middle fingers of both his hands into a cross. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto shouted as several shadow clones appeared all around Sasuke. The Uchiha activated his two Tomo Sharingan before the clones all rushed at him. Sasuke grabbed one clone's arm, kicked another one before hurling the first one into two others and tossed three kunai, which impaled three more clones. Sasuke then jumped into the air and formed a few hand signs. Fire Style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Sasuke shouted as he blew several balls of fire at the shadow clones. Boom! Smoke covered the area as the clones were destroyed by the Fire Style Jutsu. Sasuke landed on the water as he waited for Naruto to make his next move. His eyes widened in shock, however, when the smoke cleared to reveal Naruto with a clone charging up a Rasengan. Sasuke gritted his teeth as he formed a couple hand signs before gripping his left wrist. Sasuke then pumped chakra into his left hand before changing it into an electrical current. Naruto, seeing Sasuke charging up a Chidori to counter his Rasengan, smirked. This is just like on a hospital roof? Huh, Sasuke? Only this time there is no one around to stop us, said Naruto. Sasuke's eyes widened slightly as he remembered about that. Flashback. Naruto had returned to the Hidden Leaf with Tsunade to wake up Sasuke, who was in a Tsukuyami-induced coma. Tsunade, using her famous medical ninjutsu, had managed to wake Sasuke up. Sakura, who was relieved Sasuke was okay, immediately hugged him. Tsunade had left the room to give Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura some privacy. Thank goodness you're okay, Sasuke, said Sakura. Sasuke looked at Sakura with tired eyes. Sakura, you're hurting me, said Sasuke. Naruto, however, was gritting his teeth as he watched the whole thing. No, thank you, Naruto. No hug. No nothing. It's always Sasuke this and Sasuke that. I'm tired of being in that bastard shadow no matter what I do. Well, that's it. No more, thought Naruto as the curse mark reacted to his anger. It overtook the left side of his face as the bangs of his hair concealed his eyes. He still hadn't put back on his headband. He then walked over to his teammates before gripping Sakura's shoulder and forcibly moved her out of the way. Sakura landed on her but before she looked up at Naruto with a glare. "Hey Naruto, what was that for?" asked Sakura. Her eyes widened, however, when she saw Naruto's features. Naruto's nails resembled claws, and his K9S resembled fangs. His whisker marks were darker and more pronounced, and his eyes were blood red with slits for pupils. The black flame-like tattoos of the curse mark covered the left half of his face. Naruto glared at Sakura. "Stay out of this," said Naruto, Ninetales chakra / curse mark first state, before he turned to Sasuke and grabbed his shirt collar. "What do you want, dope?" asked Sasuke as he glared at Naruto. "You and me, the roof now," said Naruto. Sasuke smirked as he activated his Sharingan. "Fine," said Sasuke. Naruto let go of Sasuke's shirt collar before the latter got up. They left the room with Sakura following them. Roof. Naruto and Sasuke arrived on the roof of the hospital. The two then faced each other. Sakura, meanwhile, watched from the doorway with concern for her teammates. Sasuke then took out his leaf headband and tied it around his forehead. "Aren't you going to put your headband on, Dobe?" asked Sasuke. Naruto just smirked as his features returned to normal and the curse mark receded. "I don't need it," said Naruto. Sasuke then gave Naruto a mild look of curiosity. "Weren't you the one who claimed that when two people fought while wearing their village's headband showed that they recognized each other as equals?" asked Sasuke. Naruto just chuckled. "Well, maybe I don't see you as my equal," said Naruto as he pointed his thumb at his forehead. "Because I know you won't be able to scratch my forehead." Sasuke glared before dashing at Naruto. He threw a punch at the blonde Jinchuriki, but Naruto caught his fist with ease. Sasuke then jumped back before weaving through hand signs. He then inhaled deeply. "Fire style, great fireball jutsu," shouted Sasuke before he blew a large fireball at Naruto. The blonde genin smirked as he put his fingers into that familiar cross. "Shadow clone jutsu," shouted Naruto as several shadow clones appeared. The clones then rushed at the fireball and sacrificed themselves to stop it. Boom! Smoke surrounded the roof due to the explosion caused by the fireball hitting the clones. Sasuke looked where Naruto had been standing to try and find the Uzumaki. Suddenly, 3 shadow clones leaped out of the smoke. 2 of them grabbed Sasuke's arms, 1 per arm, and the third latched onto him from behind. "What the dash?" said Sasuke. The smoke then cleared to reveal Naruto with his right hand in a single sign. Sasuke's eyes widened as a Sharingan allowed him to see what that hand sign was for. "I win," said Naruto. Great clone explosion. The 3 clones then began to glow. "SHIT," shouted Sasuke. Kaboom! The clones exploded, leaving behind thick, black smoke. Sakura, who had been watching the whole time, had been blown on her butt and began to panic as she didn't see Sasuke or Naruto get out of the blast radius. Thankfully, since it was only 3 clones, the explosion wasn't powerful enough to blow the roof apart. Naruto then appeared on the right water tower. He looked down and smirked. Even if Sasuke was healed enough to where he could leave the hospital, that explosion made sure he's going to be here for a long time, thought Naruto. His smirk turned into a frown. However, when the smoke cleared to reveal that Sasuke was still up and moving and was now currently charging up Chidori, Naruto growled as the curse mark overtook the left side of his face. "I should have known he would use the substitution jutsu to get out of it," thought Naruto as he looked to where the blast went off to see one of his clones laying on the ground before it disappeared in a puff of smoke. His smirk returned, however, as he held out his right hand, and a shadow clone appeared before forming a Rasengan in his right hand and disappearing. Naruto then jumped off the water tower and held out his Rasengan using right hand. Sasuke then held out his Chidori using left hand. Sakura, unable to take the fighting anymore, jumped up and ran toward her teammates. "Stop it. Stop this senseless fighting. Please," Sakura begged. Naruto and Sasuke saw Sakura running toward them. "Shit, I can't stop," thought Naruto. "Damn it, Sakura will get caught in the blast," thought Sasuke. Suddenly, Kakashi appeared between Naruto and Sasuke, pushed Sakura back, and caught the two Genin's jutsu using arms before flinging them into the twin water towers. Bam! The two members of Team 7 punctured the water towers with their jutsus. Sasuke ripped out his left arm, causing water to pour out of the water tower and onto the roof of the hospital. He then looked to his right as Naruto ripped his right arm out, only to go wide-eyed when he saw that Naruto's Rasengan had blown a huge hole in the back of the second water tower. What kind of jutsu was that? If that jutsu had hit my Chidori, then I would have, thought Sasuke. Kakashi approached the two Genin with a glare. What were you two thinking? Those jutsus were way too powerful to just be used for a spar. The power behind those jutsus was meant for the kill, Kakashi said as he berated the two for being so careless. And on top of that, if I hadn't got here in time, Sakura could have been killed. Naruto gritted his teeth as the curse mark receded. Naruto grunted before he back-flipped off the roof of the hospital and took off across the rooftops at high speed. Naruto, Sakura called after the blonde Genin as she tried to go after him, only for Kakashi to stop her by placing his hand on her shoulder. I'll go after Naruto. If he sees you right now, it probably won't end well, said Kakashi before he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Sasuke then walked up to Sakura. Sakura, don't ever get in the way again, said Sasuke before he went back inside, leaving behind an upset Sakura. Flashback end. Sasuke shook off the memory before he and Naruto dashed at each other with their jutsu, using arms cocked back. As they reached each other, they thrusted their jutsus forward. Chidori. Rasengan. The two jutsus collided with each other, causing a torrent of air and lightning. Suddenly, however, boom! The two jutsus exploded, flinging the two former best friends back. Sasuke slammed into the feet of the first Hokage statue, while Naruto slammed into the feet of Madara Uchiha statue. Sasuke then pulled himself out of the hole his body made. I have to bring this fight to an end soon. I could try another Chidori again, but I've already used it once, which means I can only use it one more time. Not to mention, I have no clue how many more times Naruto can use that Rasengan. I'll have to wait for an opening. That's when I'll be able to strike, thought Sasuke. He then looked toward Madara's statue to see Naruto standing. However, his nails and K9s resembled claws and fangs respectively, and his whisker marks more darker and more pronounced. His hair was wilder, and his eyes were red with slits for pupils. Naruto chuckled darkly as he walked forward. Why are you trying so hard to bring me back, Sasuke? Why do you care? You never cared before, shouted Naruto, Nine-Tails Chakra. Sasuke gritted his teeth. Because you became my best friend, shouted Sasuke, causing Naruto to go wide-eyed. Your best friend? Asked Naruto. Sasuke nodded his head. Yeah, I hate to admit it, but it's true. Back when Team 7 was formed, I couldn't care less about you, Sakura, or Kakashi. All I wanted was revenge against Itachi for destroying the Uchiha clan, but over time I found myself getting used to being around you and the others, said Sasuke. And as time went by, I even found myself wondering why I wanted revenge when it wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't bring back my parents or the rest of the clan. So I decided to just enjoy my life as a shinobi with my friends. Naruto looked at Sasuke in shock. He couldn't believe the supposed Avenger was choosing his team over vengeance. However, Naruto growled. You say that revenge won't bring your parents back? At least you had parents at the start. I never had any parents to begin with. I've been alone right from the beginning. What would you know about it? Naruto exclaimed. Naruto, you don't have to be alone anymore. Just come back to the village with me, and you'll never be alone again. Sakura, myself, and the rest of the Rookie 9 will be there for you. We all have a bond with each other, said Sasuke as he held out his right hand. Naruto stared at Sasuke with wide eyes. He then reached into his shuriken pouch and pulled out his hidden leaf headband before looking at it. He then closed his eyes and pictured all his friends looking at him and smiling. However, his mind then pictured Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hashigaki. If you want to learn the truth, then you need to sever yourself from your past. Sever yourself from everything and everyone that will make you weak. Only then will you be able to gain true strength. Itachi words to Naruto rang loud and clear to him. Naruto tied his headband around his forehead before his eyes snapped open. A bond? We have a bond, you say? In that case, said Naruto as purple chakra started swirling around him. The curse mark overtook Naruto's body, wrapping around him. Sasuke's eyes widened at what he saw. Naruto had completely transformed. Naruto's hair had grown to the point that it reached his waist and was a sickly pale orange. His skin was gray, and his whisker marks, if possible, were even darker, and he had a black X on the bridge of his nose. Naruto then opened his eyes to reveal that the whites of his eyes were black, but his iris were still red and his pupils were still slits. Two webbed, hand-like wings tore out of the back of his orange jumpsuit jacket. I'll just have to sever that bond. Naruto, curse mark second state, yelled. Naruto, said Sasuke, who was stunned at Naruto's new form. Small Sasuke, it's time we finish this. As equals, said Naruto. Sasuke couldn't believe what he saw. Was this still the same Naruto he remembered? Or was the Naruto he knew gone forever? Sasuke shook those thoughts from his head. He closed his eyes and tightened his headband. All right, Naruto, I'll face you as an equal. Did you know that when two shinobi of equal strength face each other, they can read each other's thoughts through the simple exchange of fists, said Sasuke. He then opened his eyes to reveal that a third Tomo had formed. Naruto smirked. If that's the case, then can you read my thoughts? Can you tell what's on my mind? Asked Naruto. Let's go, Naruto. Sasuke shouted the last part. Naruto just continued smirking before the two former best friends dashed at each other. Meanwhile, Kakashi and his ninja hound, Pakin, were headed toward the final valley as fast as they could. Kakashi, Naruto, and Sasuke's scents are growing stronger, but Naruto's scent has turned darker, said Pakin. Kakashi nodded his head in understanding. Naruto, I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you when you needed someone. I'm sorry that I made you feel alone, but I won't let that happen anymore. Naruto, Sasuke, hang on. Kakashi thought as he pumped as much chakra as he could into his legs and sped toward the final valley. In the leaf, thunder rumbled as Tsunade looked out the window at the storm clouds. I'll become Hokage no matter what. Just you wait. I'll master the Rasengan in a week, and then you'll have to give me that necklace. I never go back on my word. That's my ninja way. A tear rolled down Tsunade's cheek as she remembered what Naruto had told her before and after he had brought her back to the village. Naruto, said Tsunade, with Jiraiya. Jiraiya, or as he's better known as the Great Toad Sage, was sitting on the fourth Hokage's head atop the Hokage monument. Naruto, I'm sorry I couldn't stop Orochimaru from corrupting your pure heart. No, I'm sorry I couldn't be there to ease your loneliness. Forgive me, Naruto, thought Jiraiya as he looked up at the storm clouds. Final Valley. Thunder roared and lightning crackled as the two former best friends clashed. Though Sasuke's 3-Tomo Sharingan allowed him to keep up with Naruto's curse mark enhanced speed, it couldn't help him with the enhanced strength. Every time he would block a punch or kick, Naruto would just deal a more severe blow. If he couldn't get control of this fight. What's the matter, Sasuke? Are you getting tired? Asked Naruto. Sasuke looked toward Naruto and saw he was in just as bad a shape as himself. They were both battered, beaten, bruised, and had several cuts. Damn it, there's still no opening. I guess I'll have to make one, thought Sasuke as he made a couple of hand signs before gripping his wrist. As he began charging up a Chidori, Naruto smirked. The Chidori again? Fine, but it won't work, said Naruto. Suddenly, a sharp pain coursed through Naruto's body, causing him to drop to one knee as he gripped his left shoulder. The curse mark then receded, causing Naruto's features and hair to return to normal. Damn it, not now, thought Naruto. Normal. Sasuke's eyes widened in surprise before they changed to determination. There's an opening, thought Sasuke. He then dashed at Naruto with full speed. Once he reached Naruto, Sasuke thrusted the Chidori through Naruto's left shoulder. The Uzumaki looked at his pierced left shoulder with Sasuke's left arm through it, before looking back at the Uchiha with wide eyes. Sasuke removed his arm from Naruto's shoulder, allowing blood to flow out of the wound to mix with the water. Naruto coughed up blood before he finally collapsed. Sasuke gasped for air, trying to catch his breath, for he had exhausted almost all of his chakra to bring Naruto down. I didn't hit a vital spot, so Naruto should survive. Now to just get this moron back to the leaf, thought Sasuke. His eyes widened. However, when he saw red chakra begin bubbling out of Naruto's body. Jumping back, Sasuke watched as Naruto stood up and the red chakra formed around him like some kind of shell. The chakra shell then took the shape of a fox with a single tail. The wound Sasuke managed to inflict had even healed completely, leaving no trace that it had been there in the first place. Sasuke, you aren't the only one. Who's special? Said Naruto. 9 tails, 1 tail mode. However, the curse mark overtook the left side of Naruto's face and body and even turned the chakra shell purple. Chakra versions of Naruto's curse mark second state webbed hand-like wings sprouted out of the back of the chakra shell. Naruto, said Sasuke. Naruto, 9 tails, 1 tail mode, / curse mark first state, then disappeared before reappearing on the feet of Madara Uchiha statue, with Sasuke jumping onto the feet of the first Hokage statue. Naruto then held out his right hand as he formed a Rasengan without the need of a shadow clone. If I use the Chidori again, I'll be all out of chakra, but I don't have a choice, thought Sasuke as he formed 2 hand signs before gripping his left wrist and charged up a Chidori. The red and purple chakra swirling around Naruto then caused Naruto's Rasengan to turn black. However, at the same time, some of the red chakra drifted towards Sasuke and turned his Chidori red. It's time we ended this battle, said Naruto as memories of all the battles he and Team 7 had been in flooded his mind. And all the battles we've had up till now. Ruby Sharingan met blood-red eyes. The minute the thunder boomed and lightning crackled, the 2 former best friends launched themselves at each other. Sasuke, Naruto. As the 2 reached each other, they slammed their respective jutsus together. Rasengan, Chidori. A giant black sphere formed around the 2 and grew to the size of the final valley itself. Inside the sphere, Naruto and Sasuke were trying to push each other back as hard as they could. However, Naruto caught an opening and plunged his black Rasengan into Sasuke's chest, but it didn't have enough power to finish the job. At the same time, Sasuke thrusted his red Chidori at Naruto, but only scratched the forehead protector on his headband. Naruto changed back to normal, while Sasuke's Sharingan deactivated as the 2 began to drift away from each other. However, at the last second, they finally managed to make the comrade sign, which they were never able to bring themselves to do back in the Ninja Academy. Outside the sphere continued to float there before white cracks began to form all over it. The cracks continued to spread all over the sphere until finally, boom! The sphere exploded, causing a large earthquake to occur. Once the earthquake ended, Sasuke washed up on the shore of the valley, unconscious. Naruto, however, managed to limp his way over to Sasuke while holding his right arm. His clothes were shredded, as was his headband. Naruto looked down at the unconscious Uchiha to see that he didn't look much better either. Why? Why would you go so far from me, Sasuke? Asked Naruto. Suddenly, pain shot through Naruto's right arm, causing the Uzumaki to grip his arm tightly while gritting his teeth as he dropped to his knees and leaned over Sasuke. Naruto's headband came undone and landed on Sasuke's headband-covered forehead before sliding and landing on the ground. Naruto looked at Sasuke for a few minutes before standing up and limping toward the forest. He then looked back at Sasuke's unconscious form. It then began to rain. Naruto looked up at the pouring sky. Even the heavens are crying, thought Naruto. He then looked back at Sasuke. I'm sorry, said Naruto before he turned and walked into the forest, disappearing from sight. Laying on the ground next to Sasuke was Naruto's hidden leaf headband, which he had received from Iruka, with a scratch across the hidden leaf symbol. At that moment, Naruto's picture of Team 7 and Tsunade's necklace washed up next to his headband. The picture of Team 7 was still in one piece, but the glass was cracked over Naruto's image. Meanwhile, a strange plant-like man wearing a black coat with red clouds and a Venus fly trap-like thing on his head had been watching the whole fight. "We'd better report this to the leader," said the man before he sunk into the ground. Final Valley. Kakashi and Pakin arrived to find an unconscious Sasuke laying on the shore. Kakashi rushed over to him and immediately noticed the scratched headband, the necklace, and the broken photo. Pakin sniffed the items. "They're Naruto's," said Pakin. Kakashi looked at Sasuke with sadness more than evident in his lone visible eye. "Can we track him?" asked Kakashi. Pakin shook his head sadly. "I'm sorry, Kakashi, but that's going to be impossible with how hard it's raining. Naruto's scent is already weaker than it was before," said Pakin. Kakashi sighed as he carefully lifted Sasuke into his arms. "That's all right, Pakin. Could you get Naruto's headband, picture, and necklace?" said Kakashi. Pakin nodded his head. "Yeah," said Pakin. Kakashi then looked at the unconscious Uchiha in his arms. "I'm sorry I'm late, Sasuke. I know you must have fought your hardest," thought Kakashi. Once Pakin collected Naruto's items, he and Kakashi made their way back to the leaf. Meanwhile, Orochimaru and Kabuto were leading Naruto through the secret hideout. Orochimaru was covered in bandages from head to toe, and Naruto now wore a boy's kimono with bandages around his torso, arms, and forehead. "I'm glad you were able to make it, Naruto." Facing an Uchiha with the Sharingan must have been no easy feat, said Orochimaru. Naruto looked at Orochimaru with a monotone expression. "Enough chit-chat. I want to start training as soon as possible," Naruto said in an emotionless tone of voice. Kabuto glared at Naruto. "You will learn to show Lord Orochimaru respect, Naruto," said Kabuto. Naruto glared back at Kabuto. "And who is going to make me?" "You," asked Naruto. Orochimaru chuckled darkly. "He already wants to start training without any regard for his own health. Heh heh. He will make a fine vessel once he is trained properly," thought Orochimaru. Elsewhere, a group of people, all wearing the same black coat with red clouds, were gathered together. Naruto Uzumaki has left the Hidden Leaf Village and joined Orochimaru. "He even managed to beat your little brother, Itachi," said the plant-like man. Itachi looked on without a word or hint of emotion. Kisame chuckled. "Well, who would have thought that the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki would manage to beat Itachi's little brother? I guess you managed to get under both their skins, Itachi," said Kisame. "The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki is still no match for my art," said another man. "No matter. Within 3 years the hunt for the tailed beasts will begin. We will simply save the Nine-Tails for last. Until then, we will begin amassing funds for the Akatsuki." "You're all dismissed," said a man with purple eyes that had several rings around the pupils. To be continued. Chapter 2. Reunion. 2.5 years have passed since that fateful day. Many things have changed. Orochimaru's hideout. Naruto Uzumaki was in the training room practicing with his new jutsus. The past 2.5 years he had spent under Orochimaru's training had allowed the Jinchuriki to become far stronger than he would have ever gotten if he had stayed in the Hidden Leaf. Naruto's hair was longer, but not by much, and his skin was lightly tan. He now wore a long-sleeved orange shirt that was open in the front, showing off his hard pecs and flat stomach, and had the Uzumaki swirl on the back. If you looked closely, you could see the seal on his stomach which kept the nine-tailed fox contained, and if you looked on the left side of his neck, you would see the curse mark with the suppression seal around it. He also wore black umbu pants which ended in black ninja sandals, and a purple cloth that went around his waist, but was open in the front and went down to below his knees and was kept in place by a purple rope belt. He also had a katana with a purple handle, silver blade, and a purple sheath which was on the back of his waist and kept in place by the rope belt. He also wore black forearm guards on his arms. Basically, it's Sasuke's Hibi outfit from Season 2 of Naruto Shippuden, but with a few differences. During his training, he had discovered he had 3 chakra affinities: wind, water, and lightning. With these, he had managed to learn a few jutsus that fell under these affinities. However, he wasn't particularly able to learn many water jutsus thanks to a certain resident in his body, but he did manage to learn some. However, to make sure he would get stronger, Naruto willingly subjected himself to medical ninjutsu and forbidden jutsu enhancements. Fortunately, being the Jinchuriki to the most powerful tailed beast out of them all did have its perks. With an increased healing factor going for him, Naruto was able to survive the more gruesome enhancements and come out of it without a scratch. Currently, he was practicing with his lightning-style jutsus, and his target was his shadow clones. During his training, Naruto discovered why the shadow clone jutsu was labeled as a forbidden jutsu. Turns out that when a shadow clone dispels, its memories return to the original. That meant that the jutsu was perfect for infiltration, espionage, and training. Things that would take weeks of training to learn only took days with the shadow clones. Lightning style, lightning current, shouted Naruto as his right hand became encased in lightning before he slammed it into the ground. An electrical current shot through the floor and electrocuted several shadow clones. A few clones appeared behind Naruto with katana in hand and swung at him. However, Naruto disappeared before reappearing behind the clones that tried attacking him while sheathing his katana. Once the katana clicked into place, the clones split in half before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Naruto looked ahead to see a clone standing there smirking. The clone then held out his right hand before it became encased in lightning, which began to make that all-too-familiar chirping sound. You see, after Naruto discovered he had 2 chakra natures, wind and lightning, the first lightning jutsu he wanted to learn was either the Chidori or the lightning blade. So he had 2 clones work on the jutsus. Whichever one mastered their jutsu first would be the jutsu Naruto would keep. So after a couple months, the clone that dispelled first was the one working on the Chidori. Naruto found it kinda ironic that he would end up learning the very jutsu he had wanted to learn when he was younger, but his former sensei refused to teach him how, claiming that he didn't have the right chakra for it. He found it even more ironic that he learned the very jutsu his former best friend and teammate had been taught. After learning the Chidori, Naruto came up with a few jutsus that were based off the Chidori. He also made a few combination jutsus with his Rasengan by infusing one of his 3 chakra natures into the jutsu. Naruto smirked as he held out his right hand and formed a Rasengan. After he began his training under Orochimaru, Naruto decided he needed to learn how to form the Rasengan without the need of a shadow clone, because he knew that if an enemy were to destroy the clone before it could finish forming the Rasengan, then Naruto wouldn't stand chance. So he began the Rasengan training all over again, but this time he wanted to be able to form it one-handed like he could in his 9 tails, one-tail mode. So after months of failures and cursing, he finally managed to pull it off. However, he had a long ways to go before he could master it. Now he had not only mastered the Rasengan, but also mastered the new way to form it without the need of a shadow clone. The clone with the Chidori rushed at Naruto with the intent of impaling its original. However, Naruto ducked under the jutsu and brought up the Rasengan right into the clone's stomach, sending the clone rocketing into the roof. Bam! The clone hit the ceiling, causing a crater to form where he had hit before dispelling. Naruto looked at his handiwork and saw that the training room was completely destroyed. Judging by how the room is, I have to say my power is at least high Umbu level, maybe mid Kage. However, it isn't good enough. Itachi's power is beyond Kage level. Orochimaru can't even take on Itachi and hope to win, and he's as strong as Pervy Sage and Granny. Guess that's why he's a Sannin, thought Naruto. At that moment, a sound ninja appeared. Naruto Uzumaki, Lord Orochimaru requests your presence, said the sound ninja. Naruto looked at the sound ninja with an emotionless look before nodding. Get this place fixed up before I return, or else, said Naruto with an equally emotionless voice as he walked past the Sound Ninja and toward the door. The Sound Ninja looked at the destroyed training room before looking back at Naruto. He's far stronger than Lord Kabuto and almost as strong as Lord Orochimaru. I'm just glad he's on our side, thought the Sound Ninja. With Naruto was walking through the halls of the hideout while making his way to Orochimaru's sleeping quarters. I wonder what Orochimaru wants. It better be important because it's cutting into my training, thought Naruto. Soon he arrived at a large door and pushed it open to find the snake Sannin sitting up in his bed. Ah, Naruto, I'm glad you made it, said Orochimaru before having a coughing fit. Naruto looked on with that same expressionless look. What is it that's so important that it required you to interrupt my training, Orochimaru? Asked Naruto. Orochimaru chuckled. Ha ha ha, I know how important your training is, Naruto, but I have a mission for you, said Orochimaru. Naruto looked at Orochimaru with a faint hint of curiosity. What mission? Asked Naruto. Orochimaru chuckled. Not too far from here, there is a village named Tree Felling Village. This village a long time ago had a tree called the Tree of Life. However, the ancestors of the villagers made the foolish mistake of cutting down that tree, said Orochimaru. How was it a mistake? Asked Naruto. The flowers that grew around the tree kept a demon named Black Shadow away from the village. Once they cut it down and the flowers stopped growing, Black Shadow came and ate the tree to ensure it never grew back. I want you to go there and defeat this Black Shadow and collect a sample of the tree. Bring it back here, and Kabuto should be able to make a medicine that will ease the pain I'm going through. Cough, cough, said Orochimaru. Naruto just looked at Orochimaru. Why do you care about some demon terrorizing a village? It can't just be about the sample, said Naruto. Orochimaru flashed a crooked grin. The villagers there could also make excellent test subjects, said Orochimaru. Naruto just closed his eyes as he turned toward the door. I'll go, but, said Naruto before looking over his shoulder at Orochimaru with a glare. I'm not going because of the sample or the villagers. I'm going because this demon could provide a decent test for my power. Also, don't even think of laying a hand on the villagers. I may have come to you for power, but the way you can just toy with people's lives and subject them to your horrific experiments is just sick. With that said, Naruto walked out of the room, leaving behind a chuckling Orochimaru. That is why you are still not strong enough to defeat Itachi, Naruto, because deep down inside you still retain some of your old self, thought Orochimaru. Later, Naruto was walking through the forest on his way to Tree Felling Village. As he was walking, he noticed a large tree. I guess a quick target practice wouldn't hurt, thought Naruto as he pulled out a few shuriken. He then closed his eyes and turned away from the tree before tossing the shuriken. Thunk! Naruto opened his eyes and looked at the tree to see that all the shuriken had hit their mark. Naruto lightly smirked before walking over to the tree and pulling out the shuriken. Returning the shuriken to his shuriken pouch, Naruto continued on his way to Tree Felling Village. Soon he arrived at a gate and pushed it open to find he was in Tree Felling Village. Good, I made it. Now to find out where this Black Shadow dwells, thought Naruto as he walked through the village. He soon came upon a cave which was surrounded by people. I wonder what's going on here, thought Naruto. An elderly man, who Naruto guessed was the village chief, walked up to a little girl holding a lantern. Aoi, you do know what you must do, correct? Asked the village chief. Aoi nodded her head. Good, then we wish you luck, said the village chief. Aoi nodded her head again before turning and walking into the cave. As the villagers dispersed, Naruto stared at the cave opening. Excuse me, I haven't seen you around the village before. Are you new here? Asked a voice. Naruto turned around to see a young woman. Yes, actually. I was wondering what was happening here, said Naruto. The young woman sighed. You've just witnessed the human sacrifice ritual. Cough, cough, said the young woman. Naruto raised a blonde eyebrow. Human sacrifice ritual? Asked Naruto. The young woman nodded her head. Yes. Cough cough, it's a ritual which requires the villagers to offer up one of their own to Black Shadow, said the young woman. Naruto's eyes widened slightly before he walked closer to the woman. Did you say Black Shadow? Asked Naruto. The young woman nodded her head. Yes, and sadly my little girl has been chosen as the sacrifice this time. Cough cough asterisk, said the woman before she fell to her knees in a violent coughing fit. Naruto knelt down beside her. Are you all right? Naruto asked in his emotionless voice. The young woman nodded her head. Yes, I'm cough all right. Cough, said the young woman. Naruto then placed his left hand on the young woman's stomach as his hand began to glow with green chakra. About a year into his training, Naruto decided to learn some medical ninjutsu for in case something were to happen. So Kabuto had taught him several medical jutsus, and Naruto discovered he was quite good at it, but knew he couldn't compare his medical ninjutsu to Tsunade's. After all, she was famous as the most powerful medical ninja in the world. This woman is lucky to even be able to move, but she doesn't have much longer left, thought Naruto. He then poured more chakra into his hand. The young woman sighed as she felt the relieving effects of the medical ninjutsu. Naruto then removed his hand. There, you should be okay now, said Naruto. The young woman looked at Naruto before he stood up and helped her up. How did you do that? The illness I had was supposed to be incurable, said the young woman. Naruto rested his right arm on the hilt of his katana as he closed his eyes. Let's just say I'm quite skilled in medical ninjutsu, said Naruto. The young woman nodded her head. Thank you. My name is Tsubaki. What's yours? Asked the young woman. Naruto opened his eyes. Naruto Uzumaki, said Naruto. Tsubaki nodded her head. Well, thank you, Naruto. But I have a request, said Tsubaki. Naruto raised a blonde eyebrow in question. And what would that be? Asked Naruto. Please rescue my daughter, Aoi. Please, begged Tsubaki. Naruto closed his eyes as he turned away from Tsubaki. HN, I guess I will. I came here to deal with Black Shadow anyway, said Naruto as he began walking toward the cave entrance. Tsubaki watched Naruto as he walked into the cave and disappeared from sight. I wish you good luck, Naruto Uzumaki. Please bring Aoi back to me safely, thought Tsubaki. Inside the cave, Naruto walked into the cave and saw all the crystals that were in the walls and the ground. They were all different colors. As he looked around, he noticed a pink crystal sticking out of the cave wall, which reminded him of a certain former pink-haired teammate. He then removed it from the wall before looking it over. I wonder how she's been these past 2.5 years, thought Naruto. Where are you going? Take me with you. If you leave, I'll scream. Naruto shook his head to rid himself of those useless memories as he put the crystal in his shuriken pouch. Besides, no sense in worrying about a girl who would choose her crush over a teammate in a life and death situation. Naruto then produced 5 shadow clones. 3 of you head back to the village to gather more intel on Black Shadow. The other 2 search the cave for Aoi. I'll deal with Black Shadow, said Naruto. His clones gave a salute before they spilt up to do their jobs. Naruto then proceeded deeper into the cave. As he was walking, he could sense a presence coming from all around. Come on out. I know you're there, said Naruto as he rested his right hand on the hilt of his katana. Suddenly, a figure wearing a coat with tree branches sticking out of the back appeared. Leave, said the figure. Are you Black Shadow? Asked Naruto. Must not interfere with the ritual, said the figure. Naruto then unsheathed his katana. I'll take that as a yes, said Naruto before he disappeared. He then reappeared behind Black Shadow before swinging his katana straight down, but Black Shadow sunk into the ground, causing the blade to slice nothing but air. Naruto looked around for the demon, but couldn't find any sign of it as he sheathed his katana. Suddenly, one of his clones popped as its memories returned to the jutsu caster. Good, he found Aoi and got her out. Now I can fight Black Shadow without worry, said Naruto. Suddenly, one of his shadow clones appeared. What is it? Asked Naruto. The clone then handed Naruto a necklace with a vial that had flower petal designs on it. "I always said to give you this, boss," said the clone before it dispelled. Naruto looked at the necklace before pocketing it in his shuriken pouch and continuing on. Later, Naruto arrived at the heart of the cave. "Looks like I've reached the end of the cave," thought Naruto. He then looked around the area. "Come on out, Black Shadow. There isn't anywhere left to run," said Naruto. Suddenly, the cloaked figure known as Black Shadow appeared along with two identical copies. "How dare you interfere," said Black Shadow. "You and the village shall suffer." Suddenly, the three Black Shadows fused together to form a large wolf with 3 eyes, 2 faces, 6 paws, and a pair of wings. Naruto smirked as he unsheathed his katana. "Let's see what he got," said Naruto as he dashed at Black Shadow. The demon raised a paw and brought it straight down on Naruto, but the Jinchuriki dodged to the right before swinging his katana and slicing the paw clean off. Black Shadow howled in pain before firing tendrils at Naruto. The Jinchuriki ducked, dodged, and weaved through the tendrils before coming up to its top face and stabbing his katana into its left eye. Black Shadow howled in pain before throwing Naruto off. However, Naruto flipped in midair and landed on his feet. He then noticed the necklace laying on the ground with the vial broken to reveal flower petals. A breeze blew in through the opening in the roof, causing the petals to go flying around in the air. "Arga, those can't be. Those cursed flowers," screamed Black Shadow. Naruto smirked as he removed his shirt and allowed it to hang from his waist. "You're finished, Black Shadow," said Naruto as he closed his eyes and the curse mark overtook his body. His skin turned gray, his whisker marks became darker and more pronounced, and his hair grew down to his waist while becoming a sickly orange. A black X formed on the bridge of his nose. Naruto then opened his eyes to reveal that the whites of his eyes turned black while his iris became red with the pupils changing to slits. He then sheathed his katana before holding out his right hand and began charging a Rasengan. You will die here, you fucking human," screamed Black Shadow. Naruto, curse mark second state, smirked. "You will be the only one to die here, Black Shadow," said Naruto as 4 blades of wind nature chakra came out of the Rasengan. They then began rotating around the Rasengan. Naruto then dashed at Black Shadow before jumping start at his face. "Wind style, Raisin Shuriken," shouted Naruto as he slammed the Raisin Shuriken into Black Shadow's face. The jutsu tore into Black Shadow before sending him flying back and colliding with the cave wall. Naruto landed on the ground before the curse mark reseated back to its original spot on the left side of his neck. "And my body is fading, my body," said Black Shadow before he burst into thousands of wilted leaves and leaving behind a tree branch. Naruto walked over to the tree branch. So what Orochimaru said was true. Black Shadow devoured the tree of life to ensure the flowers that grew around it never grew back, thought Naruto, normal, as he put his shirt back on. He then looked up and noticed a single green leaf floating down toward him. He held up his left hand and caught the leaf before looking it over. So this is all that's left of the tree of life, thought Naruto before making his way out of the cave. Tree felling village. Naruto exited the cave to find Tsubaki and Aoi waiting for him. "Did you do it, Naruto?" asked Aoi. Naruto looked down at Aoi before nodding his head once. "You won't ever have to worry about Black Shadow again," said Naruto. He then looked at the leaf again before handing it to Aoi. "Here, to make up for my losing your necklace," said Naruto. "Thank you, Naruto. Everyone in the village owes you their lives," said Tsubaki. Naruto then walked past the two. "You're leaving?" asked Tsubaki, causing Naruto to stop. "But it's almost dark." Naruto just rested his right hand on the hilt of his katana. "I've got stuff to do that can't wait," said Naruto. "You'll come back to visit, right?" asked Aoi. Naruto looked back at the mother and daughter before nodding his head. "Sure," said Naruto. Aoi and Tsubaki waved to Naruto as the young Jinchuriki headed out, and beneath the setting sun, he smiled his first real smile in over 2.5 years. Orochimaru's hideout. A few weeks later, Naruto was sitting in the altar of Orochi, waiting for the snake Sannin and his spy. As he looked around the room, he began to let his mind wander. I wonder what really would have happened if I stayed in the Hidden Leaf. What would have been different, thought Naruto. He then pictured all of his former friends laughing and smiling. His former teammates and former sensei going to Ichiraku's ramen stand after team training. Himself, Sasuke, and Sakura being promoted to Jonin. Sakura and him finally going on a real date. Naruto shook his head as he tried to rid himself of those useless thoughts. There was no way he was going to beat Itachi if he kept letting all these what-ifs and memories keep getting to him. He then closed his eyes as he tried meditating to calm himself. However, his whisker marks became dark and more pronounced as he continued. He was interrupted, however, when Orochimaru and Kabuto returned with a ninja from the Hidden Leaf. This ninja had short black hair and black eyes. His skin was pale, and he wore a black and gray long-sleeve shirt that showed off his stomach, black umbu pants and ninja sandals, black gloves, and an umbu sword on his back. "You're late," said Naruto with an emotionless voice and his eyes still closed. Orochimaru chuckled. "Well, we ran into your old team at Tenchi Bridge," said Orochimaru. Naruto opened his eyes to reveal they were red with slits for pupils. "Am I supposed to care?" asked Naruto. The Hidden Leaf Ninja then spoke up. "You must be Naruto Uzumaki. Sasuke and Sakura have told me a lot about you." "My name is Sai," said the Hidden Leaf Ninja as he smiled at Naruto, but the young Jinchuriki immediately realized the smile was fake. Naruto's chakra flared before he and Sai appeared in a place that resembled a sewer. The floor was covered in ankle-high water, and Sai noticed a large cell door behind Naruto. Suddenly, a large red eye with a slit for a pupil opened behind the cell door, causing Sai to fall to his ass in shock and fear. Reality. Sai fell on his ass, causing Kabuto to look toward Naruto with a glare. "Naruto, enough!" shouted Kabuto. "Oomph." Naruto grunted as his whisker marks and eyes returned to normal. Sai wiped the side of his face as he attempted to stand up. "I thought I couldn't feel fear, but that's exactly what I just felt," thought Sai. Orochimaru chuckled. "Ha. He's shaping up to be a fine vessel indeed. Just a little longer, and I'll be able to make that body my own," thought Orochimaru. Naruto then stood up. "Let's go, Orochimaru. You were supposed to have started my training this morning," said Naruto before he disappeared. "You'll have to forgive him. He can be a bit touchy when someone mentions his former comrades by name," said Orochimaru before he handed Kabuto a bingo book. "Take care of that." With that, he disappeared. Later, after his training with Orochimaru, Naruto retired to his room. However, he noticed two very familiar chakra signatures in the hideout. "They're both here? Probably for me. If it's one thing we all had in common, it's that we never gave up," thought Naruto. He then decided to wait for them to come to him before disappearing. Altar of Orochi. Naruto appeared in front of the giant snake statue and sat down as he awaited the arrival of his former teammates. However, he noticed a strange little black and white mouse coming toward him. Once the mouse reached him, Naruto's eyes widened as he realized what this mouse was. Suddenly, the mouse exploded. Sai then appeared and looked toward the cloud of smoke. "Did it work?" thought Sai. Suddenly, a certain pink-haired kunoichi ran into the room. Sakura, now a chunin, wore a red zip-up sleeveless vest with black shorts and a pink skirt, high-heeled ninja boots, elbow warmers, and I don't know what they're called, and gloves. Her headband now had a red cloth instead of blue with the forehead protector that had the Hidden Leaf Village symbol on it. Seeing Sai, Sakura rushed over to him and grabbed him by the front of his shirt. "Sai, you bastard. You were planning to assassinate him this whole dash," said Sakura before she was interrupted by an all-too-familiar voice. "Sakura, it's been a while," said a voice causing Sakura to go wide-eyed as she turned toward the giant snake statue to see Naruto sitting atop the head of the statue. "No," said Sakura as she released her grip on Sai's shirt. Sakura couldn't believe her eyes. It really was him. it really was that idiotic, knucklehead ninja she fell in love with. "What's the matter, Sakura? You look like you've seen a ghost," said Naruto. Suddenly, a certain Uchiha ran into the room. Sasuke, now a Jonin, wore a black short-sleeved ninja shirt with a purple short-sleeved vest with the Uchiha clan crest on the back, black AMBU pants, and black ninja sandals, and his RTN outfit. His headband now had a black cloth instead of blue, with a forehead protector that had the symbol of the Hidden Leaf Village on it. "Sakura, what happened?" asked Sasuke. "And Sasuke, too," said Naruto, causing Sasuke to go wide-eyed as he turned and looked up at the snake statue to see his former best friend. "Naruto," asked Sasuke. Naruto looked around the room. "Where's Kakashi?" asked Naruto. "All we need is him now to complete this little Team 7 reunion." Suddenly, another Jonin appeared. This Jonin wore the same outfit as Sasuke, but the Jonin vest had the Uzumaki swirl instead of the Uchiha crest. "I'm afraid Kakashi couldn't make it, so I'm here in his place." "Call me Yamato," said the Jonin. Naruto then looked toward Sai. "Then is he my replacement?" asked Naruto. Sai chose this exact moment to speak up. "I want to see the bond between you and Sasuke," said Sai. Naruto looked toward Sasuke before looking back at Sai. "The bond between me and Sasuke? That bond was severed 2.5 years ago. I saw to that personally," said Naruto. "Though there wasn't much of a bond to sever back then." Sasuke stepped forward. "That's a lie and you know it." "Naruto," said Sasuke. "If our bond was severed back then, I would be dead." "Humph. You're alive today because I let you live," said Naruto. Suddenly, he disappeared before reappearing in front of Sasuke with his left hand on Sasuke's right shoulder. Sakura looked toward the two in shock and amazement. "Zulfast, I didn't even see him move," thought Sakura. "Last I remember, you wanted revenge on Itachi for destroying the Uchiha clan," said Naruto as he gripped the handle of his katana. "What happened to that?" While looking straight ahead with determined look, Sasuke answered. "I let it go when I saw what it was doing to my best friend," said Sasuke. "Oomph." Naruto grunted as he unsheathed his katana and made to stab Sasuke in the back. "Naruto!" Sakura shouted in an attempt to stop him. However, Naruto's blade only met the blade of Sai's katana, for the Hidden Leaf Ninja had moved behind Sasuke to block the attack. "The block you chose was the correct one," said Naruto as Sasuke and Sai leaped away from him. Sasuke pulled out several kunai and activated his 3-toed Sharingan, while Sai pulled out several shuriken before both ninja tossed the kunai and shuriken at Naruto. The young Jinchuriki, however, merely swung his katana at a speed so fast that Sasuke's Sharingan couldn't keep up and deflected the kunai and shuriken before sheathing his katana. "Is that it?" asked Naruto. Sasuke gritted his teeth as he preformed a couple hand signs before gripping his left wrist. His left hand became encased in lightning chakra as he charged up a Chidori. "Chidori, huh? All right, I guess it gives me a chance to test it out," said Naruto as he gripped his right wrist. Suddenly, his right hand became encased in lightning, causing Sasuke and Sakura's eyes widen in shock. "He can use Chidori," they both thought. Naruto and Sasuke rushed at each other before colliding their Chidors together. Lightning crackled around the two former friends as their Chidors clashed. Sasuke glared at Naruto, while the Jinchuriki simply stared at him with that emotionless stare. Having had enough, the two jumped away from each other. "How can you use Chidori?" asked Sasuke. Naruto simply stared for a moment before deciding to answer. "I have 2 chakra natures," said Naruto. "Your chakra natures are fire and lightning. Mine are wind and lightning." Naruto then unsheathed his katana before the blade became cloaked in lightning. "Super Beast Scroll, dog!" shouted Sai as he unraveled a scroll, and out came several painted dogs that rushed at Naruto. The rogue ninja, however, turned quickly and impaled one of the dogs with his lightning chakra-enhanced katana. "Lightning style, lightning current," said Naruto before an electrical current shot out of the first dog and engulfed the others, causing them to explode and cover the area in smoke. Naruto then appeared in front of Sai once the smoke cleared and kicked him in the gut, sending him flying into the wall. Sasuke then rushed at Naruto and threw a punch at him, but the rogue ninja simply caught the punch before elbowing Sasuke in the gut and threw him into the other wall. After recovering, Sai and Sasuke ran at Naruto. The rogue ninja, however, sheathed his katana before both his hands became encased in lightning. Seeing the danger immediately, Yamato preformed a couple of hand signs. "Wood style, wood hand jutsu," shouted Yamato as his right hand became wood and stretched towards Sasuke and Sai. "Chidori stream," said Naruto as he released Chidori from his entire body, just as Yamato grabbed Sasuke, and Sai shocking not just them, but him too. Sakura was too shocked to move. Naruto can use Chidori and emit it from his entire body. Just how powerful has he become? Thought Sakura. She then got a look of determination as she dashed toward Naruto. Yamato, seeing this, went wide-eyed. "Sakura, no," shouted Yamato. "I have to do my part and help save Naruto. That's why I trained under Lady Tsunade," thought Sakura as she reached Naruto and threw a chakra-enhanced punch at him. Naruto sidestepped the punch before having to jump back when Sakura threw a chakra-enhanced kick at him. However, Naruto saw as Sakura disappeared in cloud of smoke. "A clone?" thought Naruto. He then looked up to see Sakura coming down with her right foot aimed at him. "Heaven kick of pain!" shouted Sakura as she came down. Naruto, however, jumped out of the way just before Sakura's kick hit the ground, causing the floor to crack and shoot up. The blow was so severe that it cracked the walls and the ceiling before the roof of the hideout collapsed. Once the smoke cleared, everyone looked toward the cliff to see Naruto sitting there with that same emotionless look. "You trained under Granny Tsunade, didn't you, Sakura?" said Naruto. "She's the only one who knows how to use that heaven kick of pain jutsu." He then appeared behind the Pinkette and struck her with a chop to the back of the neck. Sakura's eyes widened as she felt herself slipping into unconsciousness. "I couldn't," was Sakura's last thought as she fell forward only for Naruto to catch her. Naruto gently laid the unconscious Sakura down before turning to face Sasuke, who had managed to get free of Yamato's grip. Sasuke made a couple hand signs before gripping his left wrist. His left hand became encased in lightning as he charged up a Chidori. "I'm taking you back," shouted Sasuke. Naruto held out his right hand as he charged up a Rasengan. "It's over," said Naruto. Yamato quickly grabbed the unconscious Sakura before getting himself and Sai away from the area. Lightning and wind whipped around the two former best friends as they stared each other down. One determined to save his friend from the darkness. The other determined to continue immersing himself in the darkness. Finally, after having briefly seen their past conflict from 2.5 years ago flash before their eyes, Naruto and Sasuke launched themselves at each other. "Naruto!" screamed Sasuke. "Sasuke!" screamed Naruto. "Chidori!" Rasengan. The two jutsus collided with each other just as they had all those years ago, causing a black sphere of energy to form around the two. However, white cracks formed on the sphere and spread all along it before the sphere exploded. When the dust settled, Yamato reappeared with Sai and Sakura before looking to find a battered and bloody Sasuke, whose left arm was covered in his own blood. He then noticed Sasuke was looking toward the cliff and looked there also only for his eyes to go wide. There stood Naruto completely unharmed. "I'm done holding back against you," said Naruto in an irritated tone as he held out his right. "What? He wasn't fighting at full strength?" thought Yamato. Naruto started charging a Rasengan before it became encased in lightning. He then held it up before 4 blades came out of it and began rotating around it. Suddenly, however, a hand grabbed Naruto's wrist, causing the jutsu to dispel as he looked to his right to find that Orochimaru was responsible for interrupting. "I wouldn't use that jutsu yet," said Orochimaru. Besides, we need them. Naruto glared at Orochimaru. Let go, said Naruto in a cold and menacing tone. I'd listen to Lord Orochimaru, said a voice causing Naruto to look to his left to see Kabuto. Give me one good reason, said Naruto. Orochimaru chuckled. How about them taking out as many Akatsuki members as possible for us? Asked Orochimaru. Naruto glared at Orochimaru. That's a pitiful excuse, said Naruto. Kabuto sighed. The Akatsuki are hunting the tailed beasts and have already gotten their hands on the one tail. They'll come after you sooner or later. So why not have them take out as many as possible so that way your battle with Itachi will go undisturbed? Explained Kabuto. Naruto looked toward Kabuto before his hand went limp in Orochimaru's grip. Bright boy, said Orochimaru as he let go of Naruto's arm, allowing to fall by Naruto's side. Naruto looked down at the beaten team, Kakashi. Get in the way again, and I'll crush you. That's all, said Naruto. Suddenly, Orochimaru, Kabuto, and Naruto's feet all were engulfed in green flames that slowly rose up their bodies and made the parts that already were engulfed disappear. Wait, Naruto, shouted Sasuke as he made one last attempt to convince his former best friend to come back with him. Naruto then pulled out a pink gem and tossed it to Sasuke, who caught it. Sasuke found a note tied on it that was addressed to Sakura. He then looked back up in time to see his former best friend and the two sound ninja disappear. To be continued. Chapter 3, The Rise of Hebe. 6 months later. It had been a full 3 years since Naruto parted ways from the Hidden Leaf Village now, and a full 6 months since his fight with Team Kakashi. He was currently sitting on a rock above the new hideout while awaiting Orochimaru to come start the next phase of his train. Orochimaru's illness is starting to hinder my training, and on top of that, my strength is at level beyond even his. Not to mention, he intends to take over my body soon. I think it's about time for me to put my plan into effect, thought Naruto. Suddenly, thousands of sound ninja appeared all around Naruto. What's the meaning of this? Asked Naruto in that same emotionless tone. Orochimaru then appeared along with Kabuto. I think it's time to test the power you've gained so far, Naruto, said Orochimaru with a sadistic grin, which is why you will face 5,000 of my followers, all Jonin and Umbu. Naruto stood up before 4 shadow clones appeared. Go need help? Asked Kabuto. Naruto rolled his eyes. As if, I simply want to get this over with as quickly as possible, said Naruto. Orochimaru chuckled. Ha. Very well, said Orochimaru. Then let's see if you can beat them within 3 minutes. Naruto looked toward the group of sound ninja. I'll only need 2, said Naruto before he and his shadow clones took 1,000 apiece and rushed headlong into the army of sound ninja. Orochimaru and Kabuto watched as Naruto and his clones took on the army of sound ninja with ease. Orochimaru chuckled as he watched his vessel plow through the sound ninja like they were nothing. Soon that will be my body. I had my doubts about forsaking my original plans of having the Sharingan, but this worked out nicely instead. Far better than I originally hoped, thought Orochimaru. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Laughed Orochimaru. He and Kabuto then noticed that Naruto's shadow clones were gone and Naruto was sitting on the rock he had been perched on when they appeared surrounded by 5,000 defeated sound ninja. Well done, Naruto. And without a single fatal blow, said Orochimaru. But you need to let go of your mercy. A ninja must be ruthless. Compassion will be your downfall. Naruto looked toward Orochimaru with a glare. Unlike you, Orochimaru, I only kill if needed. Not if I have a choice, said Naruto as he stood up and headed into the hideout. That afternoon, Orochimaru was in his bed going through a rough, coughing fit. Asterisk cough, cough, cough. Asterisk, Orochimaru coughed as blood leaked out of his mouth. Kabuto looked on in worry. This is going to require administering a rank 10 pill, thought Kabuto. He then handed Orochimaru a glass of water. This damn body is at its limit, said Orochimaru. Kabuto walked toward the door. Wait here. I'll go get the medicine, said Kabuto before opening the door. stepping out and closing it. Outside the room, Kabuto turned toward the two Umbu-level sound ninja guarding the door. "Don't let anyone in there unless I'm with them," said Kabuto before he started walking down the hall toward his lab. "Lord Orochimaru's current body won't last much longer. Tomorrow, or better yet tonight, we must perform the transference ritual." Meanwhile, Naruto was in his room meditating when his eyes snapped open. "Time to go," said Naruto as he stood up. He then disappeared. Orochimaru's room. The two sound Umbu standing guard heard footsteps approaching before seeing Naruto walking toward them. "Halt! Lord Kabuto ordered us not to let anyone in without him by their side, including you, Naruto Uzumaki," said sound Umbu number 1. Naruto glared before disappearing. He then reappeared behind the two sound Umbu, followed by them dropping to the ground unconscious. "I didn't ask to be let in anyway," said Naruto before turning toward the door. He then unsheathed his katana and rested the blade on his shoulder. He lifted his left hand toward the door before it became encased in lightning. The curse mark overtook the left side of his face. "Chidori spear," said Naruto as a spear of lightning shot toward the door. Inside the room, Orochimaru was still sitting on his bed while waiting for Kabuto to return. "Where is he?" thought Orochimaru. Suddenly, a spear of lightning shot through the door and impaled Orochimaru in the right shoulder. "Argh," grunted Orochimaru as he looked toward the door. The door then split in half to reveal Naruto with his left hand encased in lightning and the spear extending from it. "I knew you would come for me," said Orochimaru. Naruto looked at him with an emotionless expression. "Then you know what my intentions are," said Naruto. "I can be merciless, even to you." He then walked toward the right side of the bed before lifting his katana above his head with the intention of cutting Orochimaru in half. The snake Sannin quickly opened his mouth before spitting out a white snake. Naruto stopped his movement and watched as the snake then spat out another Orochimaru. The Chidori spear dissipated as the curse mark receded. "I'm the only one who can give you the power to defeat Itachi," said Orochimaru. You were, but now the illness has ravaged your body beyond the point of no return. I dare say that you won't survive the night, even if I don't kill you. And besides, you have nothing left to teach me," said Naruto. Orochimaru chuckled. "Ha ha ha! Then I guess it's time I claim my new body," said Orochimaru as he launched himself at Naruto, but the young Jinchuriki jumped to the left to dodge. Orochimaru then opened his mouth and outpoured thousands of snakes that shot toward Naruto. The snakes swarmed around Naruto before being blown away. Orochimaru's eyes widened in shock at what he saw. Naruto's whisker marks were darker and his eyes were red with slits for pupils, but he was surrounded by red chakra that took the shape of a fox with two tails. Naruto, 9 tails, 2-tail mode, looked toward Orochimaru with a glare. "As I said, I could be merciless even to you," said Naruto. He then extended his chakra-clawed hand toward Orochimaru and grabbed him before slamming the snake Sannin into the ground. He then walked over to Orochimaru before taking his katana and stabbing the snake Sannin in the chest. Orochimaru looked up at Naruto's cold red eyes before his own gold ones rolled into the back of his head. Naruto removed his katana from Orochimaru's chest before the red chakra dissipated and his whisker marks and eyes returned to normal. He then turned and started walking toward the door before quickly turning back around and hurling his katana at a giant white snake that had Orochimaru's features and hair. The katana impaled the great white snake before pinning it to the opposite wall. "How did you know?" asked Orochimaru, great white snake. Naruto smirked. "I may be stronger than you, but it takes more than that to bring you down," said Naruto. However, he suddenly found himself in a strange place with a fleshy ground. Suddenly, the fleshy surface began to rise up around Naruto, pinning him in place. Another part of the fleshy surface rose up before revealing Orochimaru's face. "Where the hell am I?" asked Naruto. Orochimaru chuckled. "This is the universe inside my body. This is where the transference ritual takes place, said Orochimaru. Now it's time to claim what is rightfully mine. As he said this, the flesh covering Naruto began to fully engulf him. Just as it was about to completely cover him, however, it suddenly turned black and melted completely away. What? Exclaimed Orochimaru. The transference ritual is being rejected? Suddenly, 3 large black tendrils rose up. Orochimaru looked toward Naruto to see that his eyes were red with slits for pupils. You thought that a Jinchuriki would be easier to control than an Uchiha, but you were mistaken. You claimed to be a genius, and yet you made the most common mistake. Now you and your dream die here, said Naruto. Nine-Tails Chakra. The tendrils then moved toward Orochimaru. No, I am Orochimaru. I am the one who will unlock the secrets of nature. I am immortal, screamed Orochimaru as he was engulfed by the tendrils. Naruto's eyes returned to normal. You were chasing a hopeless dream. The secrets of nature will always remain just that. Secrets, said Naruto. Reality. Kabuto had returned to find the guards unconscious. He then rushed into the room to find Naruto standing in the middle of the room. He then looked toward the opposite wall to find the great white snake pinned there by Naruto's katana. The great white snake. Does this mean the transference ritual is already complete? Thought Kabuto. Naruto then looked toward Kabuto. Kabuto, said Naruto before he walked over to the great white snake and removed his katana, allowing the corpse to fall to the ground. He then sheathed his katana before walking toward Kabuto. Which one are you? Asked Kabuto. Naruto stopped beside Kabuto before answering. Why don't you guess? Suggested Naruto. Kabuto fell to his knees. Then Lord Orochimaru is, said Kabuto. Naruto then walked out of the room. Hallway. Naruto walked out of Orochimaru's room. Now that I've absorbed Orochimaru's power, it's time to take out Itachi. But first I'm going to need a team, thought Naruto. Right. First up is Suigetsu. With that, Naruto proceeded toward the lab. Laboratory. Naruto arrived in the lab to find the door to the holding tanks sealed shut with 2 Jonin-level Sound Ninja standing guard. Halt! Only Lord Kabuto and Lord Orochimaru are allowed in here, said Sound Ninja number 1. Orochimaru is dead, said Naruto as he continued walking toward them. Both ninjas' eyes went wide with shock. What? Exclaimed both ninja. Naruto then disappeared before reappearing behind both ninja. Both Sound Ninja dropped to the floor unconscious. Naruto looked toward the door. Better hurry before Kabuto gets over his shock and sound the alarm, thought Naruto. He then unsheathed his katana before the blade became cloaked in lightning chakra. Naruto then swung his katana straight down and split the door in 2. Naruto proceeded into the room to find the walls lined with tanks full of water. He then walked toward the one at the far end of the room. Let's get you out of there, Suigetsu, said Naruto. He then stabbed his lightning chakra enhanced katana through the glass before cutting in a vertical line. Water leaked out before the pressure became too much for the tank, and the glass shattered, causing the water to spill out. Naruto then looked down at the water as he sheathed his katana. Get up, Suigetsu, said Naruto before he slammed his foot on the ground. Ow! All right, I'm up, said a voice before the water rose up and took the form of a human with white hair and purple eyes. He wore a purple sleeveless vest with white pants and ninja sandals. On his back was a large sword, and on his belt was a bottle for keeping water. What are you doing here, Naruto? You're going to piss off Orochimaru if he finds out you freed me, said Suigetsu. Orochimaru is dead, said Naruto, causing Suigetsu's eyes to widen. I killed him before coming down here. Well, yeah, my thanks, but why free me, said Suigetsu. Because I need you and 2 others. I'm making a team. The choice is yours, said Naruto. Suigetsu mulled it over. Well, I do owe you for freeing me. All right, I'm in, said Suigetsu. So who are we going to recruit next? Karen. Naruto simply answered. Suigetsu groaned in annoyance. Not that woman. She and I don't get along well, said Suigetsu. Naruto turned and began walking toward the door with Suigetsu in tow. I'm not saying that you have to get along. Just cooperate, said Naruto. Suigetsu sighed. Fine, but no promises, said Suigetsu. Outside the hideout. Once Naruto and Suigetsu were out of the hideout, they began heading for the southern hideout. You do know that it's going to take at least a full day and a half to get to the southern hideout, right? Asked Suigetsu. Naruto nodded. I know, but I know a place along the way where we can stay for the night, said Naruto. Unless you want to sleep on the hard, dry ground. Suigetsu immediately had a different opinion. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go, said Suigetsu as he ran ahead. Naruto looked on with an emotionless look. Reminds me of Konohamaru, said Naruto before following after Suigetsu. Tree-felling village. Naruto and Suigetsu arrived in tree-felling village to find business booming. Naruto looked up at the orange and red sky and saw the sun setting. There's a house just outside of the village surrounded by a few ponds and a river, said Naruto. Before Naruto could finish, Suigetsu was already on his way there. Tsubaki and Aoi's house. Naruto and Suigetsu arrived at Tsubaki and Aoi's house to find that it really hadn't changed much. The paint was new, but that was about it. Suigetsu, seeing the large river flowing by the house, immediately ran over and jumped in. Naruto shook his head. He then walked toward the house. Naruto, is that you? Asked a voice, causing Naruto to look toward the clothing line and see Tsubaki hanging some clothes to dry. Naruto nodded his head. Yes, it's been a while, Tsubaki, said Naruto. Tsubaki smiled as she walked toward him. It's so nice to see you again, Naruto. Aoi will be so happy, said Tsubaki. She's inside. Wait here while I go get her. Tsubaki then walked inside. A few seconds later, Naruto heard running footsteps before the door flung open and Aoi flew at him. She flew directly into him, knocking Naruto onto his back as she tackled him. Now in Naruto's defense, he could have dodged, but something told him he shouldn't. Welcome back, Naruto, shouted an extremely happy Aoi as she hugged the young Jinchuriki. Naruto patted her on the head. It's good to see you too, Aoi, said Naruto. That night, Naruto, Tsubaki, and Aoi were having dinner. Suigetsu, however, opted to stay in the river instead. So you're only staying the night? Asked Aoi. Naruto nodded his head. Afraid so. My friend and I are heading somewhere that would take all night to reach, said Naruto. I wonder why your friend didn't want to come in, said Tsubaki. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. I think he's part fish in all honesty. He loves being in the water more than on dry land, said Naruto. Aoi giggled, as did Tsubaki. So how has the village been? Asked Naruto. It's doing well. Now that the villagers are able to enter the crystal caves again, the village has been able to do business with other villages, said Tsubaki. In fact, a kunoichi from the Hidden Leaf came here with 2 other ninja to pick up some crystals ordered by the Hokage. Naruto's eyes widened as he heard this. They couldn't possibly, thought Naruto. What do they look like? Aoi chirped up. Well, the kunoichi had pink hair while the other 2 had black hair and silver hair, said Aoi. They're staying at the inn. Naruto then stood up. Is everything all right, Naruto? Asked Tsubaki. Naruto nodded his head. Yeah, I'm just gonna head into town and see if they have any extra shuriken and kunai, said Naruto before he walked out the door. Naruto, thought a worried Aoi. Later, Naruto was jumping through the trees toward the village. What are they doing here? Even if it's a simple mission like picking up a delivery, if they find out I'm here, then they'll try to take me back to the Hidden Leaf, thought Naruto as he arrived in Tree-felling Village. He then headed to the inn before sneaking in. Naruto crept through the halls of the inn as he made his way to the rooms his former teammates were staying in. Sensing their chakra, Naruto approached the door before carefully peering in and finding none other than Sakura, Haruno, asleep in the bed. Carefully, he entered the room before closing the door. He then approached the bed and looked down at Sakura's sleeping form. So, they are here, thought Naruto. He noticed her combat gloves and headband were on the nightstand, while her ninja boots were on the floor in front of it. He then looked closer and noticed a pink gem attached to a chain around her neck. That's, thought Naruto as he remembered tossing the gem to Sasuke 6 months ago. He then sat on the bed before leaning toward Sakura and placed a gentle kiss on her forehead. He then raised up before getting a small smile on his face. "You really do have a charming, wide forehead, Sakura," Naruto whispered. Sakura stirred slightly before a small smile graced her lips. "Naruto," Sakura said in her sleep. Naruto silently chuckled before making his way to the window. He silently opened it before leaping out and making his way back to Tsubaki and Aoi's house. Forest. As Naruto was making his way through the forest to Tsubaki and Aoi's house, he stopped when he felt a presence following him. "Come out. I know you're there," said Naruto as he rested his right hand on the hilt of his katana. A very familiar face then appeared. Naruto smirked as he turned to face his old sensei, Kakashi Hatake. "Naruto," said Kakashi. "Kakashi, it's been a while," said Naruto. "Naruto, what are you doing here?" "I honestly didn't expect to find you here," said Kakashi. "Why I'm here is none of your concern. I really shouldn't be your concern anymore, since I parted ways with the leaf a long time ago," said Naruto. "Naruto, word has gotten out that you killed Orochimaru. Sakura and Sasuke thought that meant you were coming back home. But that isn't the case, is it?" said Kakashi. "TCH, I will not be kept from my goal. Not even by you damnable leaf ninja," said Naruto. Kakashi's lone visible eye widened in surprise. "Naruto, you really have fallen into the darkness," thought Kakashi. "Do you think I'm going to believe that you want nothing to do with the hidden leaf?" Naruto raised a blonde eyebrow in question. "What do you mean?" asked Naruto. "I know what you did in Sakura's room," said Kakashi, causing Naruto's eyes to widen slightly. "You still love her, don't you?" Naruto growled in irritation. "Whether I still care about Sakura or not doesn't matter. I will see my goal to its completion," said Naruto as he turned away from Kakashi and began walking away. "Naruto, wait," said Kakashi as he attempted to follow Naruto. However, Naruto tossed a piece of paper on the ground before a barrier appeared between him and Kakashi. "A barrier," thought Kakashi as he stopped in his tracks. "And you won't stop me," said Naruto as he disappeared from sight. The next day, after saying goodbye to Tsubaki and Aoi, Naruto and Suigetsu continued on their way to the southern hideout. "Do we have to recruit Karen?" asked Suigetsu. Naruto nodded his head. "Karen is a sensory-type ninja. I'm only able to sense chakra that I'm familiar with, so she is needed," said Naruto. "Man, that woman's going to make this trip a bitch," said Suigetsu. "I can always stuff you back in that tank," said Naruto. That effectively silenced Suigetsu. Southern hideout. Naruto and Suigetsu arrived at the shore to find the southern hideout out in the middle of the ocean. Suigetsu's sweat dropped. "Well, now what?" asked Suigetsu. He then looked toward Naruto to see him remove his shirt before he changed into his curse-marked second state. "You love water so much. You figured out," said Naruto, curse-marked second state, as he jumped in the air and flew toward the southern hideout. Suigetsu growled. "Bastard," thought Suigetsu. Inside the southern hideout. Naruto landed inside the southern hideout before changing back to normal. He then looked around. "Now where are you, Karen?" thought Naruto. Suigetsu then made his way in. "Yeah, thank a lot for the help, you bastard," said Suigetsu as he walked up to Naruto. "If you needed help getting across, then you should have asked," said Naruto without looking at him. Suigetsu growled. "Oh, it's you too," said a voice. Naruto and Suigetsu looked back to see a girl with long red hair, red eyes, and a double A-cup bust. She wore glasses, a long-sleeved purple zip-up shirt that was unzipped at the bottom to reveal part of her stomach, black shorts, and ninja boots. "Karen," said Naruto. "Since you're here, then the rumors that Orochimaru is dead are true," said Karen. "It's still hard to believe that you killed him, Naruto." "Well, His illness had already weakened him, said Naruto. But that's beside the point. Karen, I need you. Come with me. Karen's eyes widened. What? I can't leave. There are still inmates here that I'm in charge of, said Karen. Fine. Suigetsu, go free all the prisoners, said Naruto. Suigetsu rolled his eyes. Yes, sir, said Suigetsu as he gave a mock salute before walking away. Karen looked at Naruto with wide eyes. Now you don't have anyone to be in charge of. The choice is yours, said Naruto. Karen then looked at Naruto's shirtless chest before biting her lip. Like I'm going to pass that up, thought Karen as she blushed. Well, okay. Naruto nodded his head. Good, said Naruto. Karen then walked up to Naruto. But what do you need me for? Exactly, asked Karen in a seductive tone as she placed a finger on his chest. Just as I thought. All muscle. Very sexy muscle. I need you for your sensory skills, said Naruto. Oh well, not exactly what I thought he needed me for, but good enough, thought Karen. She then pressed herself against Naruto. But isn't there something else you need me for? I'd be able to do anything you want, said Karen as she started to unzip her shirt. I'll let out all the prisoners, boss, said Suigetsu as he walked back into the room, causing Karen to quickly zip up her shirt and separate herself from Naruto. Good work, Suigetsu, said Naruto as he put his shirt back on. Suigetsu then looked at Karen before smirking. And if you're going to seduce someone, don't just throw yourself at them, Karen, said Suigetsu, causing a tick mark to appear on Karen's forehead while she adjusted her glasses. I wasn't throwing myself at him, nor was I trying to seduce him, Suigetsu, exclaimed Karen. Suigetsu chuckled. That's what it looked like to me, said Suigetsu. Karen growled. Enough you two, said Naruto. Now that Karen has joined us, our next destination is the northern hideout. Suigetsu and Karen looked at Naruto. Why are we going there? Asked Suigetsu. To recruit Yugo, said Naruto. Karen's eyes widened in shock. Yugo, but he's not mentally stable. He could kill us without a second thought, said Karen. Naruto smirked. You let me worry about that, said Naruto. You just locate him when we get there. But it's going to take at least 10 days to get to the northern hideout from here, said Karen. Naruto just shrugged. Then I hope you enjoy sleeping outdoors, said Naruto, causing Karen to sign defeat. Suigetsu just laughed. I don't get what your problem is, Karen. What's so bad about that? Said Suigetsu. Karen got a gleam in her eye as she found a way to get revenge on Suigetsu for interrupting her and Naruto earlier. The northern hideout is in the middle of the desert, said Karen, causing Suigetsu to pale. What? Asked Suigetsu. Naruto then spoke up. Get it together. We're heading out, said Naruto as he walked toward the exit with a smirking Karen in tow. Suigetsu sighed in defeat. Shit, said Suigetsu. -9 days later. Naruto, Karen, and Suigetsu were walking through a forest that was near the desert. Karen and Suigetsu, however, were dead on their feet. Suigetsu from how dry it was getting, and Karen from how dirty she felt from being unable to bathe. How much further is it? Asked Suigetsu. At least another day, said Karen. Suigetsu sighed. Hey boss, there has to be someplace we can stop to rest for the night. Someplace cool with lots of water maybe, said Suigetsu. And a shower too, said Karen. Naruto sighed. He couldn't believe how pathetic they were, and yet he needs them to help him in completing his goal. Hopefully Yugo isn't as useless as they are, thought Naruto. He then noticed a building they were coming up to. It looks like you're both going to get your wish, said Naruto. Karen and Suigetsu looked at Naruto in confusion before seeing the building up ahead. The moment they read the sign, their eyes turned to stars. It was an inn with a hot spring. They then sped past Naruto and ran to the inn. Seems they found some extra energy to be able to run that fast, thought Naruto as he continued at his normal pace with the sun setting. That evening, Suigetsu jumped into the hot spring. Phew, that's better. May not be cool, but at least it's water, said Suigetsu as Naruto walked in wearing a towel around his waist. He then got in the water. I'll admit it is a nice change from sleeping on the ground, or in a tree, thought Naruto. So Naruto, where are you from exactly? Asked Suigetsu. That's nothing for you to be concerned about, said Naruto. Come on, spill it. You already know that I'm from the Hidden Mist, and the bitchy Banshee is from Hidden Grass. So where are you from? Said Suigetsu. Naruto sighed. Hidden Leaf, said Naruto. Hidden Leaf? You mean that village Orochimaru wanted to destroy? Asked Suigetsu. Naruto nodded his head. That's the one. I actually fought Orochimaru back then to protect that village with the stupid dream of becoming Hokage. In the end, I woke up to reality and realized that no matter what I did, the villagers would hate me, said Naruto. So why did they hate you? Asked Suigetsu. Because I'm the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, said Naruto, causing Suigetsu's eyes to widen in surprise before he whistled. But doesn't that mean you have to be careful how angry you get? Or it'll, said Suigetsu. Naruto shook his head. The furball and I came to an agreement. I don't piss it off and it don't try to take over, said Naruto. Suigetsu nodded his head in understanding. So why hasn't the leaf tried to get you back yet? I know that the hidden villages all have to have a tailed beast, so I figured they'd be busting their balls trying to get you back, said Suigetsu. When you're constantly moving between hideouts, it makes you difficult to locate. And they've tried a couple times to bring me back, but I proved that I was too powerful, said Naruto. He then got up and stepped out of the water while Suigetsu dove under. Karen then walked in wearing nothing but her glasses and a towel. Karen, what are you doing in here? This is the men's hot spring, said Naruto with a raised eyebrow. Oh, is it? I wasn't paying attention, lied Karen. Now to put seduce the hunk into action. Karen then removed her glasses before setting them on the bench and smiling a seductive smile. But since we're alone, I figure we can get to know each other on a more personal level, said Karen in a seductive tone as she blushed. Not interested, said Naruto. Karen then pressed herself against Naruto. Oh, stop playing hard to get. Tell you what, said Karen as she gripped the knot in her towel. How about I give you a little peek at what I have to offer? As she said this, Karen undid the knot in her towel, allowing it to fall to the floor. Naruto could now see everything from Karen's perky nipples to her cleanly shaved pussy. Karen had to hold it or giggling as she saw Naruto's unchanging expression, but his cheeks began to turn red. He's blushing, which means I'm beginning to wear him down, thought Karen with a blush of her own. Well, what are you saying, are you two? At that moment, however, Suigetsu resurfaced. This is the Lifalo, exclaimed Suigetsu as he saw Karen's current lack of attire. Karen's eyes widened before she quickly snatched her towel off the floor and secured it around her petite form. SS Suigetsu, what the fuck are you doing in here? Screeched Karen as several tick marks appeared on her forehead. Suigetsu smirked as he leaned back in the water. This is the men's hot spring, Karen. So I could ask you the same thing, said Suigetsu. Karen growled. You idiot, screamed Karen as she picked up a bucket and hurled it at him. Suigetsu's eyes widened before the bucket hit him in the head. Naruto, however, had slipped out during the ensuing chaos. Naruto sighed. Just a little longer. Just a little longer and it'll be all over, thought Naruto as he made his way to his room. The next day, after redressing and paying for their stay, Naruto and his companions were back on their way. We should reach the northern hideout soon, so be ready for anything, said Naruto. Karen and Suigetsu nodded their heads. Right, they said in unison. Northern hideout. When they arrived at the northern hideout, they found that the inmates were out roaming. Naruto then turned to Karen. Karen, is Yugo with any of these inmates? Asked Naruto. Give me a minute, said Karen as she made a hand sign and closed her eyes. After a couple of minutes, she opened them again. No, it seems Yugo isn't out here, said Karen. Suigetsu sighed. Well, at least that saves us the trouble of picking him out from all of them, said Suigetsu. These inmates are the result of Orochimaru's curse mark experiments, said Karen. He threw them here when the curse mark drove them to insanity. So far, there are only 7 successful curse mark bearers, and 5 of them are dead. Suigetsu's eyes widened slightly as he remembered something. Say, Naruto, don't you have a dash? Asked Suigetsu before being interrupted. We'll just have to force our way through, said Naruto as he unsheathed his katana. Suigetsu gave a malicious grin as he grabbed his sword. Finally a chance to cut loose, said Suigetsu. Can I tear him apart? Naruto sighed. Just don't kill any of them, said Naruto. It was Suigetsu's turn to sigh. Fine, said Suigetsu before he and Naruto dashed toward the large group of curse mark test subjects. Karen, however, was blushing as she watched Naruto mow through them with ease. Oh, what a hunk. When he first came to Orochimaru, I didn't think much of him. But now, Naruto Uzumaki, you will be mine one day, thought Karen as she began to daydream of a life with Naruto. Karen, said Naruto, waking said Kunoichi from her daydream. Huh, said Karen as she looked at Naruto. I said let's go, said Naruto as he sheathed his katana. Karen then looked around at all the unconscious inmates. Right, said Karen. Suigetsu, meanwhile, was snickering. She was so caught up in her perverted thoughts about Naruto that she never realized we were done, thought Suigetsu. However, a rock suddenly struck Suigetsu in the back of the head, causing him to fall face first into the sand. Karen, the one responsible, huffed as she followed after Naruto. Inside Northern Hideout. Naruto, Karen, and Suigetsu, who recovered from the blow he took, walked through the Northern Hideout with Karen pointing out where to go. However, they soon came to a fork in the road. Which way now, Karen? Asked Naruto. Karen closed her eyes as she felt for Suigetsu's chakra. She then opened them before pointing left. He's that way, said Karen. About time, said Suigetsu as he started walking that way. However, as Naruto started heading that way, Karen grabbed his arm and pulled him down the hall on the right. What is it, Karen? Asked Naruto. Karen then looked at Naruto with a blush. Yugo is actually this way, said Karen as she pointed down the right hallway. Naruto looked at Karen with mild curiosity. Then why did you lie and say he was the other way? Suigetsu is going the wrong way, said Naruto. Karen puffed out her cheeks. Suigetsu is annoying, so I said that to separate us from him. He'll catch on eventually, said Karen. Naruto sighed, but decided to let it go. Then are we close? Asked Naruto. Karen nodded her head. Yeah, he's just a little further, said Karen. Then let's go, said Naruto as he started walking with Karen in tow. Meanwhile, Suigetsu, who was still going the wrong way, sighed. Hey Naruto, do we really have to recruit Yugo? I mean, we can always find someone else, said Suigetsu. When he didn't get a response, he turned around to find Naruto and Karen gone. That bitch, said Suigetsu with a growl. Later, Naruto and Karen walked down a hall before arriving at a large metal door. This is it. Yugo is inside, said Karen. Just so you know, Yugo is the source of all the curse marks. Naruto gave Karen a curious look. What do you mean? Asked Naruto. I mean, he has a special enzyme in his body that causes him to go berserk. Orochimaru captured him and extracted this enzyme from him and developed the curse mark from it, said Karen as she approached the door. As she grabbed the handle, however, Naruto grabbed her shoulder and moved her away from the door before gripping the handle and opening it. Suddenly, a figure with orange hair and matching eyes with a gray t-shirt and shorts came flying out of the room. The left side of his face was covered in black flame-like tattoos, and his left eye was black with a gold iris. His left arm had morphed into a gray spiky club. You! I'll kill you first! Shouted Yugo, Berserk State 1, as he lunged at Naruto and thrusted his left club-like fist at the rogue ninja. Naruto held up his arms to block the attack, but he and Yugo smashed into the opposite wall, causing smoke to shroud them. Naruto! Shouted Karen. Her eyes widened. However, when the smoke cleared to reveal Naruto in his curse-marked second state using his webbed hand-like wings to block the attack. He then spread his wings, forcing the berserking Yugo back. The curse mark then receded as Naruto put his shirt back on. Yugo, I'm not here to fight with you. I just want to talk, said Naruto, normal, as he pulled himself out of the crater in the wall. No talking. I'll kill you all, shouted Yugo as he lunged at Naruto again. Suddenly, Suigetsu appeared and blocked Yugo's attack with his sword before forcing him back. You might as well forget trying to get through to him. In his current state, Yugo only knows one thing, said Suigetsu as he had an evil grin on his face. I'm going to enjoy tearing you apart. Ha 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 ha. Let's go. I'm going to break every bone in your fucking body, shouted Yugo. Enough, said Naruto. However, Yugo and Suigetsu ignored Naruto's order as they dashed at each other. However, just as they were about to reach each other, Naruto walked between them before white snakes came out of his sleeves and wrapped around the two of them, effectively stopping them. This is Orochimaru's dash, thought Suigetsu. Don't make me repeat myself, said Naruto in a warning tone of voice. Suddenly, the markings on Yugo's face receded as his left arm and left eye changed back to normal. Certain that they wouldn't attempt to attack each other again, Naruto released the jutsu, and the snakes receded back into his sleeves. W, who are you? What do you want? W, why am I out of my room? Asked Yugo, normal, as he began to panic. Karen sighed in relief. Now that his berserking urge has subsided, he is back to normal, said Karen. Naruto looked at Yugo. Yugo, I need your power. Come with me, said Naruto. Yugo shook his head. I can't. What if I lose control again, said Yugo. I will stop the rampage if necessary. I will be your cage, said Naruto. Yugo looked at Naruto in disbelief. How can you stop the rampages? Only Kimimaro could stop them, said Yugo. Kimimaro is dead. He died for me, said Naruto. Yugo's eyes widened in recognition. Then you must be Naruto Uzumaki. Kimimaro told me how you were Orochimaru's chosen vessel. The one to replace him, said Yugo. Naruto nodded his head. That is correct. Now, will you come with me? Said Naruto. Yugo thought it over for a few minutes before answering. In a way, you're sort of like Kimimaro's reincarnation, said Yugo. Very well. I'll go with you. Good. Now let's get out of here, and I'll explain why I need you three, said Naruto before he turned and began walking back to the exit with Karen, Suigetsu, and Yugo in tow. Outside the northern hideout, Naruto and his companions made it out of the hideout before he turned toward them. The reason I've recruited you three is because I need your powers to help me achieve my goal. From here on, we move as a team. I'm not asking you to get along with each other. I'm saying that you at least need to cooperate. From here on, we will be known as Hibi, said Naruto. Hibi has but one objective, the destruction of Itachi Uchiha. Chapter 4, Truth. Part 1. Akatsuki Hideout. The remaining members of the Akatsuki were gathered together. Suddenly, the image of the Akatsuki leader appeared. So what's with this emergency meeting? Asked Kisame. Orochimaru is dead. It seems the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki is responsible, said the leader. Another man spoke up. What? Orochimaru was mine to kill, shouted the outraged man. Calm yourself, Deidara, said the leader. Another man with an orange mask then spoke up. Yeah, Deidara, wouldn't want you to get too heated up and cause your detonating clay to blow up, said the man. Deidara looked toward the man with a glare. Shut up, Toby, ordered Deidara. While we're on the subject of dead members, where are Haiden and Kakuzu? I haven't seen them check in yet, said Kisame. They're dead as well. Sasuke Uchiha and the other hidden leaf ninja are responsible, said the leader. Kisame smiled a vicious smile as he looked at his partner, Itachi Uchiha. Your little brother never fails to amaze, Itachi, said Kisame. Itachi remained silent. I'd watch your backs if I were you. Naruto Uzumaki is not as weak as you think him to be. And I can guarantee that you, Itachi, and Kisame are his targets. We can no longer wait. I am ordering the immediate capture of the Nine-Tails, said the leader. And remember, bring him back alive. With that said, the Akatsuki leader's image disappeared. Well, things are definitely getting more interesting, Itachi, said Kisame. Itachi remained silent before he and Kisame's images faded. So, what now, Deidara? Asked Toby as he looked at said bomb clay user. Deidara had a look of deep thought before he got an evil grin on his face. Toby audibly gulped. I don't like when you get that look on your face, Deidara, said Toby. Suddenly, Deidara's image faded. Ichiwai, wait for me, Deidara, shouted Toby as his image faded. Meanwhile, Naruto sneezed as he and the rest of Hibi were eating in a diner while searching for clues on Itachi's location. Are you alright, Naruto? Asked Yugo. Naruto nodded his head. I'm fine, Yugo. Someone was probably just talking about me, said Naruto. He then looked down at his bowl of miso ramen. Not as good as old man Tucci and Iams, but decent enough, thought Naruto. Maybe once I've dealt with Itachi, then I'll go back. Naruto then got a sad smile as he realized what he thought. Like I'd be able to set foot in the village. Sasuke and Sakura would welcome me back with open arms, but everyone else would, thought Naruto. What's with the look, Naruto? Asked Karen as she broke Naruto from his thoughts. Naruto shook his head before masking his sad smile with his usual neutral expression. Nothing, Karen, said Naruto before he finished his bowl of ramen. Let's go. Naruto then stood up before paying for the meal and heading toward the exit. Yugo and Karen stood up and followed after Naruto. Suigetsu, however, remained seated. To hell with that. I'm ordering seconds, said Suigetsu. However, Karen approached Suigetsu and grabbed the back of his shirt. Let's go, Suigetsu, Karen said angrily before yanking Suigetsu out of his seat. Ichiwai, shouted Suigetsu. Later. Naruto, Suigetsu, Karen, and Yugo were walking through a field when they stopped. Naruto then turned toward the other three members of Team Hibi. I want you three to continue searching for information on Itachi's location. Get as much as you can. Got it, said Naruto. Yes, all three said in unison before they disappeared. Naruto sighed as he walked over to a rock before taking a seat. Those three remind me a lot of the old Team 7 back in our Genin days, thought Naruto. He then looked up at the sky as memories of his past came flooding back. Flashback. A younger Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno, and Sasuke Uchiha were sitting on the roof of the Ninja Academy with their new sensei, Kakashi Hitaki. Let's start with introductions, said Kakashi. You know what I mean? Likes, dislikes, hobbies and hopes for the future. That sort of thing. Naruto immediately raised his hand. Yes, asked Kakashi. I think you should start by introducing yourself, Sensei, said Naruto with Sakura and Sasuke agreeing with the blonde. Kakashi nodded his head. All right, my name is Kakashi Hitaki. I don't have any likes or dislikes, and I have lots of hobbies. As for my hopes for the future, well, I haven't really thought about it, said Kakashi. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura all sweat dropped with one thought in mind. That doesn't tell us anything. All we really learned was his name. All three thought. Kakashi then pointed toward Naruto. All right, you in the orange. You're first, said Kakashi. Naruto gave a big grin. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like many types of ramen. My hobby is sampling the many different flavors. I hate the 3 minutes you have to wait after pouring the boiling water into the instant ramen cups, and my dream is, said Naruto, to become the Hokage, so then everyone will have to respect me. Oh boy, besides his dream, this kid has got ramen on the brain, thought Kakashi before pointing at Sakura. You're next, Pinky. Sakura nodded her head. My name is Sakura Haruno. The things I like are, or the person I like is, looks at Sasuke and blushes. And my hobby is, looks at Sasuke and blushes again. My dream is to, looks at Sasuke, said Sakura. Sasuke gave Sakura a curious glance. Why do you keep looking at me? Asked Sasuke. Sakura's cheeks turned red before she giggled. And? Asked Kakashi. Sakura snapped out of her thoughts before continuing. And I absolutely hate Naruto. Sakura finished causing Naruto to faceplant the ground. Why me? Naruto thought as he cried anime tears. Kakashi sighed. This one is too worried about boys to put in any serious effort, thought Kakashi before he pointed at Sasuke. And now we come down to you, Uchiha. Sasuke just folded his hands in front of his face as he glared straight ahead. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I don't really like anything and I hate almost everything. My hobby is training and what I have is not a dream, for I will make it a reality. I'm going to restore my clan and destroy a certain someone, said Sasuke. Naruto nervously gulped. I hope he doesn't mean me, thought Naruto. Kakashi nodded his head. Well, it seems I have a ramen-loving idiot, a fangirl, and a too serious Uchiha. I'm going to have my hands full with these three, thought Kakashi. The Jonin then stood up. All right, meet at the training grounds early tomorrow morning, said Kakashi. Naruto quickly spoke up. Are we going on a mission? Asked Naruto. Kakashi shook his head. No, I'm going to put you three to the test. All Jonin sensei put their students through a test before they are allowed to become ninja, said Kakashi. At this, Naruto grew a tick mark. Hey, you can't do that. We're already ninja, shouted Naruto. Sakura nodded her head in agreement. That's right. We became Genin after we passed the final exam, said Sakura. Kakashi, however, chuckled. That exam is child's play. This exam is the true test to see if you're ready to be ninja. Also, it has a 66% failure rate, and if any of you fail, even one of you, then all three of you will be sent back to the academy, said Kakashi, causing Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura's eyes to widen in shock. Oh, and don't eat breakfast tomorrow, or you'll throw up. See ya, said Kakashi before he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura all three looked at each other with one thought in mind. I have to pass. Flashback end. Naruto sighed as he closed his eyes. Back then, everything seemed so simple. Get stronger, become Hokage, and then I wouldn't be looked down on. But then, all this happened, thought Naruto as he grabbed his left shoulder where the curse mark was. After I got this curse mark, everything seemed to go to hell. Naruto then shook his head. This is no time to be regretting what is past. Itachi, I'll make you tell me what really happened the night the Nine Tails attacked, thought Naruto. He then looked toward the forest as he felt a presence. Come out. I know you're there, said Naruto. Immediately, Deidara and Toby appeared. We've been looking for you, Nine Tails, said Deidara. Deidara, are you sure he's Nine Tails? He doesn't appear to have 9 tails, and he doesn't look like a fox, said Toby. Deidara looked at Toby with a glare. He's the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. How the hell did you get into the Akatsuki? Asked Deidara. Toby scratched his head in thought. Luck, said Toby, causing Deidara to face-plant the ground. Naruto's sweat dropped. And people used to call me an idiot, thought Naruto. Deidara then stood up. One more word out of you, and you'll wake up in a hospital with third-degree burns all over your fucking body. Toby. Deidara growled out. Toby immediately made a zipping motion with his right hand over the lower part of his mask, where his mouth was underneath it. You too, said Naruto, gaining Deidara and Toby's attention, are with the Akatsuki. Tell me where Itachi Uchiha is. Deidara chuckled. Wouldn't you like to know? Unfortunately, you won't be getting to him because you're going to be coming with us, said Deidara. Naruto just glared at the two. I'm afraid that won't be happening. Regardless of the fact that the Nine Tails made my childhood a living hell, he's still a part of me. He'll be a part of me until the day I die, said Naruto. Deidara chuckled. Hey, I'm afraid you don't have a choice, said Deidara before he tossed some clay spider bombs at Naruto. The rogue ninja, however, quickly unsheathed his katana and cut the clay spiders in half. He then looked at Deidara to see him making a single-hand seal. Naruto's eyes widened as he noticed the clay spiders began to glow. Shit, cursed Naruto as the bombs exploded, clouding him from vision. Ooh, I think you got him, Deidara, said Toby. However, Naruto suddenly came rushing out of the dust cloud with a large Rasengan in his right hand. Deidara growled as he held up his right hand in a single-hand seal. As Naruto got close, he thrusted the Rasengan into Deidara's stomach, causing the clay user's eyes to widen in shock. Giant Rasengan, shouted Naruto as the large Rasengan slammed into Daidara's stomach. The jutsu twisted the bomb clay user's stomach before the jutsu grew even larger, consuming Daidara. Toby quickly leapt into a tree to escape the blast. "Oh, Daidara, you idiot! You went and got yourself killed," shouted Toby. "Alas, I knew thee well." When the resulting dust cloud settled, however, Daidara was nowhere to be seen. Naruto looked around for the bomb clay user. "Where is he? That wasn't strong enough to kill him. I need him alive to find Itachi," thought Naruto as he looked all over for Daidara. "Would you shut the fuck up already, Toby?" shouted a voice. Naruto and Toby looked up at the sky to see Daidara riding a large clay dragon. Toby sighed in relief. "Daidara, you're alive. Oh, thank goodness. I was worried I was going to have T.O. find a new partner," shouted Toby. Daidara's eyebrow twitched as a tick mark appeared on his forehead. "Just shut up and get it ready," said Daidara. "Aye, sir," said Toby as he saluted before disappearing. Naruto just glared at Daidara before pointing his right hand toward him. Naruto's hand became encased in lightning before the electrical surge shot forward at Daidara. However, when it almost reached Daidara, it fizzled out. Naruto growled in irritation. "Damn it, he's staying just out of reach," thought Naruto. Daidara then tossed a few clay birds at Naruto. The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki quickly backflipped to avoid the birds, causing them to collide with the ground and explode. Naruto looked up at the flying clay dragon and saw as a portion of the tail sunk inward before the mouth opened, revealing a miniature clay dragon. Daidara then fired the mini clay dragon at Naruto, but the Uzumaki quickly moved left to dodge. Predicting it, however, Daidara made a single-hand seal. The mini clay dragon then changed direction and followed Naruto. Just as it was about to hit him, Naruto quickly leapt back, causing the mini dragon to hit the ground and explode. Naruto landed and skidded to a stop before looking back up at Daidara. Not bad," said Daidara before making another hand seal. Another portion of the large clay dragon's tail sunk inward before it opened, its mouth revealing another mini clay dragon. But this one was larger than the last one. "However, this one has a little more bite to it," said Daidara before launching the mini clay dragon at Naruto. The mini clay dragon flew straight at Naruto before impacting and causing an explosion greater than the one before. However, Naruto leaped out of the smoke and skidded to a stop. "What?" asked Naruto when he looked down to investigate what his foot hit. Daidara smirked. "Gotcha," thought Daidara as he made another hand seal. Instantly, the spot Naruto was standing on blew up, consuming the Uzumaki in the blast. Daidara's smirk widened as he looked down at the large cloud of smoke. "I think I finally got him. Now to just capture him and take him back to headquarters," thought Daidara. However, his smirk fell when the cloud of smoke receded. Naruto was on one knee shirtless, but his hair was a sickly pale orange and reached down to his waist. His skin was gray. He had a black X on his face, his nails resembled claws, and he had two webbed hand-like wings protruding from his back. Naruto looked up at Daidara to reveal the whites of his eyes were black while the iris were red and his pupils were now slits. Orochimaru's curse mark, huh? Didn't know it could grow wings, thought Daidara. He avoided the blast by flying upward. However, it seems the blast burnt his legs a little. Suddenly, a few feet away, the ground split open before Toby popped out. "Hey, Daidara, it's ready," shouted Toby. Daidara looked toward his partner and nodded. "Good. Now get out of here," said Daidara. Naruto glared at Daidara. Guided missiles from the air and landmines from below. To top it off, he's staying just out of range of my attacks, thought Naruto, curse mark second state. Daidara chuckled. "It's the coordinated attacks from the air and the landmines from below that are preventing your movement," said Daidara. "That's the point of the C2 explosives. The ground is littered with landmines to keep you from moving around." Naruto just chuckled, causing Daidara to growl in irritation. "What's so fucking funny?" asked Daidara. "Your little art is the only way you even stand a glimpse of a chance against me," said Naruto as he smirked. "Why don't you come down here and actually attack me yourself?" Because honestly, your art is pathetic. It doesn't even have the right to be called art. Deidara's right eye twitched as he saw red. With Toby, oh, if there's one thing you never say in front of Deidara, it's that his art is pathetic and shouldn't be called art, said Toby from his perch in a nearby tree. He then looked toward Naruto. What are you going to do now? Ninetales, said Toby as a red gleam shone from the single eye hole in his orange mask. With Naruto and Deidara. You little shit. I'll show you that my art is better than anyone's, shouted Deidara as he made a single-hand seal. Another section of the clay dragon's tail sunk into the tail before it opened, its mouth revealing a mini clay dragon that was larger than the last two. Naruto's smirk fell as his webbed, hand-like wings twitched. Deidara, however, noticed this. Oh no, you don't. Die, screamed Deidara as the large clay dragon shot the mini one at Naruto. The Ninetales Jinchuriki looked on wide-eyed before quickly grasping the handle of his katana. The mini clay dragon impacted with its target, causing a massive explosion. Once it settled down, all that was left was thick black smoke. Did I get him? Thought Deidara. He then noticed Naruto's katana come spinning out of the smoke before impaling the ground. Deidara smirked as he figured he finally managed to put down the Ninetales Jinchuriki. Probably should have held back, but oh well. The leader can simply put the plan on hold until a new Ninetales Jinchuriki appears, thought Deidara. However, his smirk fell when he looked back down to find the smoke had cleared to reveal Naruto on the ground, still alive and missing his right webbed hand-like wing. Still alive, huh, said Deidara before shrugging his shoulders. Oh well, you shouldn't have used your wings to shield yourself. Now you can't fly with just one wing. Naruto then held up his left fist and yanked it backwards, revealing a wire Deidara hadn't noticed him holding on to. Deidara looked behind him to see two Demon Wind shuriken coming right at him. He quickly made the clay dragon do a barrel roll to the right to avoid the incoming shuriken. The shuriken passed him as Deidara smirked down at Naruto. Did you honestly think that would work? Said Deidara, as the clay dragon opened its mouth to reveal another clay dragon that was twice the size of the last three. Fuck capturing you. Nine tiles. As he shouted this, the clay dragon shot the mini one at Naruto. Reacting quickly, Naruto leaped at his katana. Deidara's smirk widened. Lateral movement. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Landmines or missiles. Naruto Uzumaki is dead, thought Deidara. However, Naruto landed on his katana. He then looked up at a shocked Deidara as he stood on his right foot on the hilt of his katana before he held out his right hand and formed a Rasengan. Suddenly, 4 blades of wind nature chakra came out of the Rasengan before Naruto aimed it at the large clay dragon. He used his katana to check for landmines and create a foothold for himself, thought Deidara. Wind style, Raisen Shuriken, shouted Naruto as he tossed the Raisen Shuriken at the clay dragon. Deidara's eyes widened in shock at the incoming jutsu. It's too fast to avoid, thought Deidara. He quickly leaped off his clay dragon and watched as the Raisen Shuriken struck it before turning into a large sphere of wind nature chakra. As he landed on the ground, Deidara saw his clay dragon being torn to shreds as though the jutsu were thousands of blades cutting it at rapid speeds. Naruto's curse mark receded back to its original spot on the left side of his neck. His features returned to normal, while his hair returned to its original spiky blonde and normal length. The last to change back was his eyes, which returned to normal white with blue iris and normal round pupils. What little remained of the clay dragon came crashing back to the ground, causing Deidara and Naruto's eyes to widen in shock. Shit, the landmines, thought Deidara as he leapt into the trees. Naruto made a couple of hand seals before extending his left hand towards some nearby trees. White snakes came out of the curse mark before they shot toward the nearest tree and wrapped around it. They then pulled Naruto away while he quickly grabbed his katana. The remaining pieces of the clay dragon hit the ground, causing the landmines to go off, resulting in multiple large explosions. When the explosions settled, Naruto looked around for Deidara while the snakes receded back into the curse mark. He then leaped back into the open field, which was now a crater. Where is he? I know he got out of the explosion alive, thought Naruto. He then quickly leaped back to avoid clay birds that tried striking him. Why won't you die? Shouted a voice, causing Naruto to look up and see Deidara flying on a large clay bird. He also noticed that the Akatsuki member had discarded his Akatsuki cloak, revealing that underneath he was wearing a sleeveless black ninja shirt with a chainmail undershirt. He also noticed that both of Deidara's arms seemed to be stitched on, suggesting that they had been severed a while back. Naruto smirked as he stood up straight. The reason I won't die is because I need to learn the truth from Itachi. Once I do, then I intend to return home, said Naruto. Deidara continued to glare at Naruto until he suddenly smirked. And why would a rogue ninja like you want to go back to the Hidden Leaf? You'll still be treated like shit, said Deidara. Naruto shook his head. You wouldn't understand. I have a few people waiting for me there, said Naruto as an image of Team 7 flashed before his eyes. Deidara's smirk grew wider. Like who? Itachi's little brother? Sasuke? That guy acted like he was better than everyone else and wanted revenge on Itachi for the massacre of the Uchiha clan. Your old sensei, Kakashi? He treated Sasuke better than you and didn't even bother to really train you at all. Or your old teammate, Sakura, said Deidara. That pink-haired bitch couldn't care less about you. Naruto glared at Deidara for calling Sakura a bitch. She always loved that Sasuke more than you, said Deidara. She's just a little pink-haired whore. Red chakra began pouring out of Naruto's body as he saw red at Deidara calling Sakura a whore. She's probably fucking that Sasuke right now, as we speak, said Deidara. She's just a pathetic little whore dash. Roared Naruto as red chakra shot up to the sky in the shape of a pillar, interrupting the clay user. The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki was unable to stand Deidara bad, mouthing Sakura anymore. Deidara readied himself for Naruto's next attack, but went wide-eyed when the red chakra pillar dissipated. Naruto had transformed. His entire body was covered in thick red chakra that resembled an incomplete nine-tails. He had 2 fox ears protruding from his head, his eyes were completely white, all his teeth were sharp, and he had 4 red tails swaying behind him. And, for the exact description, look up the fight between Naruto and Orochimaru in Naruto Shippuden. Roared Naruto. 9 tails, 4-tail mode. He crouched down on all fours before opening his mouth. A black ball of chakra formed in his mouth before the out-of-control Naruto shot the ball at Deidara. Seeing the danger immediately, Deidara leaped off of his clay bird. When he landed, he watched as the black ball of chakra struck the clay bird and caused an enormous explosion. He then looked toward the 4-tail Naruto, only to see the Jinchuriki rushing right at him at near blinding speeds. He quickly dug his hands into the bags on his belt, but found he was all out of detonating clay. Shit. Cursed Deidara, who looked back at Naruto, only to be struck in the side by a clawed hand. The 4-tailed Naruto's clawed hand ripped open Deidara's side, causing blood to spray out as it launched the clay user to the left. Deidara landed on the ground and skidded painfully to a stop. He clutched at his now open left side to try to stop the bleeding. Shit, I'm all out of detonating clay, and now the 9-tails Jinchuriki is going berserk. I hate to admit it, but it looks like I need to retreat for now, thought Deidara. However, before he could even sit up, Naruto landed on his chest, breaking his ribcage in the process. He then grabbed Deidara's arms and ripped them clean off, causing blood to spray out of the stumps that were left. Ahiwawaha! Deidara screamed in agonizing pain. Naruto then stabbed a clawed hand in the right side of Deidara's chest, causing the clay user to cough up blood as he continued to scream in pain. Enough. Stop, please. Deidara begged, for he couldn't stand the pain. The 4-tailed Naruto, however, held his head up and the 4 tails behind him curled toward his head as another black ball of chakra formed. What are you? Asked Deidara as he watched the sides of Naruto's mouth crack to allow him to open his mouth wider than humanly possible. The black ball of chakra fell into Naruto's mouth before the Jinchuriki slammed it shut. He then looked down at Deidara as the corners of his mouth let out a little smoke. Deidara's eyes widened in horror as he realized what the out-of-control Naruto was about to do. No, please don't, Deidara begged. In response, however, Naruto swung his clawed right hand over Deidara's throat. Blood poured out of Deidara's throat as the clay user's pleas turned into gurgling when his throat opened up. Naruto opened his mouth and then fired the black ball of chakra directly at Deidara, causing another enormous explosion. When the smoke cleared, it revealed an unharmed four-tailed Naruto standing on the remains of Deidara's shirt and the device that he wore over his left eye. Roared Naruto before the red chakra dissipated, leaving behind a slightly burned Naruto before he collapsed to the ground. With Toby, who had witnessed all this transpire, sighed. Deidara should have known better than to provoke a Jinchuriki, especially one who has yet to gain control over his tailed beast, said Toby. I wonder if I should bring in Nine Tails now or not. He then looked at the unconscious Naruto from afar before chuckling. I think I'll let him enjoy his freedom a little bit longer, said Toby before the air around him began to swirl and distort. He then disappeared in the distortion. Later, Naruto, normal, regained consciousness and opened his blue eyes only to see the concerned faces of his fellow Hibi teammates. Are you all right, Naruto? Asked Karen as she gently helped the Jinchuriki sit up. I'm fine, said Naruto as he gripped his side. What are you three doing here? Suigetsu spoke up. Well, we were in town trying to get information on Itachi when we heard this huge-ass explosion. We all looked toward the source and saw this pillar of red chakra shooting into the sky. Since you're really the only one with that color chakra, we thought you were in trouble and came running only to find you passed out here. Suigetsu explained. Naruto looked around the crater that was once an open clearing only to find the charred remains of Deidara's clothes and the device he wore over his left eye. That's right, said Naruto. I fought 2 Akatsuki members and killed one of them. The other one got away, I think. He then stood up, but lost his balance and leaned into Karen, much to the red-haired Kunoichi's pleasure. Naruto is shirtless and leaned against me. Yes, thought a blushing Karen. Naruto, you're seriously injured. We need to get you help, said Yugo. Naruto then had Karen help him sit back down. I know. A few people who can help, said Naruto. The other 3 members of Hibi gave Naruto questioning looks. Who? They all asked in unison. Naruto bit his right thumb, causing a little blood to leak out. You'll see. Soon enough, said Naruto before he slammed his right hand on the ground. A summoning seal appeared on the ground before Team Hibi was shrouded in smoke. When the smoke cleared, they were gone. Chapter 5, Truth. Part 2. A cloud of smoke erupted from a seal that formed on the ground. When the smoke cleared, Team Hibi appeared. Karen, Yugo, and Suigetsu looked around at their surroundings to find lush grass, springs of water, and frog statues. However, what really got their attention was, Ichiwai, what the hell is with the friggin' gravity? Exclaimed Suigetsu, who found it difficult to move. Karen and Yugo also found it difficult to move. It's because the climate is thicker here on MT Mayaboku, said a voice. The 3 other members of Hibi looked around before they looked at Naruto, who was chuckling. Hey, Sage Gramps, said Naruto. The 3 other members of Hibi looked at Naruto in confusion, who was still leaned against Karen, before he weakly pointed toward something. They followed where he was pointing only to find a small toad that was a turquoise green, had orange eyes with rectangular pupils, white hair in the middle of his head, and wore a tan hooded cloak. Naruto boy, what happened? Asked another voice that seemed panicked. Suddenly, a female purple toad with the same eyes as the male one and wore the same cloak appeared on Naruto's lap with a worried look. Granny Toad, said Naruto, as he smiled weakly at the female toad. The male toad, Fukasaku, spoke up. Naruto boy, what happened to you? Who did this? Asked Fukasaku. Naruto sighed. An Akatsuki member named Deidara. Don't worry. I beat him, said Naruto. He then blinked his eyes to get rid of the black spots he was starting to see. I'll explain later, but could you help me? I think I'm starting to lose. Naruto started before he passed out. The female toad, Shima, quickly leaped off of Naruto's lap. She then looked at Karen. You lass, do you know medical ninjutsu? Asked Shima. Karen looked at Shima in surprise before nodding her head. A little, yeah, said Karen. Shima nodded her head. Good, then help me get Naruto boy into the hut. I'll need your help healing him, said Shima. Karen threw Naruto's right arm over her shoulders before gently lifting the unconscious Jinchuriki, albeit with difficulty due to the heavier gravity of MT Miyaboku, and began leading him to the hut with Shima leading the way. Later, after healing Naruto to the point that the Ninetales healing factor could take over and finish the rest, Karen bandaged up Naruto's head, having bandaged his stomach as well. She then looked to Shima, who was wetting a rag to clean off the blood splatter on Naruto. Lady Shima, may I ask you something? Asked Karen. Shima looked at Karen and smiled. Of course, lass, said Shima as she cleaned off more of the blood splatter. What do you know about Naruto? I mean, why did he leave the hidden leaf? Asked Karen. Shima's smile fell as she sighed. Even though he claims that it's to get the truth about the Ninetales attack on the leaf the day he was born, that isn't the case. The real reason is because he just couldn't stand how he was treated in the village, said Shima. And the final straw was his teammate, Sakura, paying more attention to another teammate of his, Sasuke. He's always loved Sakura since the day he met her, but she loved Sasuke, so he kept his feelings for her a secret. Shima then glared. But then that bastard Orochimaru branded him with that horrible curse mark and corrupted that kind-hearted boy into what you see before you, said Shima. A young man who is consumed in his anger and just wanting to be accepted. Karen looked at the unconscious Jinchuriki with sadness. Naruto, thought Karen. Suddenly, the blonde stirred before opening his blue eyes. He then sat up. Take it easy, dear. You're still injured, said Shima. You need to lay back down and rest. Naruto looked at the female toad before smiling. It wasn't a real one, but one to put those he still considered close to him at ease. I'm fine, granitod. I heal pretty quickly thanks to my condition, said Naruto. He then stood up from the bed, only to bang his head on the low ceiling, causing him to cringe as he plopped back down on the bed. Son of a bitch, cursed Naruto as he rubbed his head. He was certain that he was going to have a headache later after that. Karen sighed. Don't go getting yourself hurt for no reason, idiot. Karen berated Naruto. The Jinchuriki looked at Karen with his usual emotionless expression before his eyes widened in surprise as a certain pink-haired kunoichi appeared in Karen's place. Don't go getting yourself hurt for no reason, idiot. Naruto quickly shook his head and looked back to see Karen again. He then stood up, making sure to watch the low ceiling, and walked toward the front door. Naruto asked Karen in an attempt to get the young Jinchuriki's attention. However, he ignored her and opened the door before walking out. Outside, Naruto walked out to find that it was already dark. He scanned around the area before spotting Fukasaku sitting on a nearby rock and walked over to the Elder Toad. Ah, Naruto boy, it's good to see you're awake, said Fukasaku as he saw Naruto take a seat on the rock next to him. Thank you for helping me, said Naruto. I know you must have had second thoughts about healing me. Fukasaku sighed as he looked up at the moon. Naruto boy, while Ma and I don't approve of the path you've taken, we would never turn our backs on you. If anything, we toads are fiercely loyal to our friends, said Fukasaku. But I know you didn't just come here for medical aid. Naruto nodded his head as he looked up at the moon as well. I want you to teach me sage jutsu, said Naruto. I know I don't have any right to ask this, but my battle with that Akatsuki member showed me that I need more power if I want to stand a chance against Itachi. Fukasaku sighed. Naruto boy, I already know that Itachi isn't the reason you left the village, said Fukasaku. You left to get away. To get away from the hateful glares of the villagers, and to get away from their criticism. And also, to get away from a love unreturned. Naruto looked at Fukasaku with eyes wide in surprise before looking at the ground. Yeah, but I still couldn't, said Naruto. Fukasaku then looked at Naruto. Tell me, Naruto boy, what do you intend to do once you've dealt with Itachi? Asked Fukasaku. Naruto looked at Fukasaku for a few minutes before taking a deep breath and looking at the moon. Once I've dealt with Itachi, then I intend to return to the Hidden Leaf, said Naruto. I want to apologize to my old team for what I've done and everything I put them through, and I'll face whatever punishment the leaf passes on me. Fukasaku looked at Naruto wide-eyed for a moment before smiling. Perhaps the darkness hasn't completely corrupted you, Naruto boy, thought Fukasaku. He then stood up. In that case, we'd best get started, said Fukasaku. Naruto looked at Fukasaku in surprise before nodding his head. Right, said Naruto. The next day, Suigetsu was lounging in one of the lakes on Mt. Mayaboku, glad that it had so many wet spots to choose from. It was also heated, so it felt like a hot spring. Sitting across from him was Yugo, who seemed to be relaxing as well. Ah, this feels great. No hunting information on Itachi, no fighting Akatsuki members, and no red-headed banshee yelling, thought Suigetsu. He then heard a crack followed by someone cursing before looking over his left shoulder to see Naruto standing on a large spike, and somehow it didn't go through his bare feet, rubbing his head while Fukasaku, who was holding a cane, was berating him for something. He then watched as Naruto nodded his head and clenched his hands into fists before pressing them together and closing his eyes. Hey, Yugo, said Suigetsu as he turned back toward the orange-haired man. What do you think Naruto's trying to do over there? He's been at it for hours with whatever he's trying to do. Yugo looked toward Naruto before looking back at Suigetsu. He's trying to learn how to use Sage Jutsu, said Yugo. Upon seeing Suigetsu's confused look, Yugo realized he would have to explain. Sage Jutsu is a special kind of jutsu that can only be performed with nature chakra, said Yugo. Suigetsu's confused look only grew. Nature chakra? What the hell is that? Asked Suigetsu. Yugo sighed. Nature chakra is the chakra of all the plants and animals. If one remains still and concentrates, then one can actually sense and possibly absorb the nature chakra. Yugo explained. Mt. Mayaboku is rich with nature chakra. It's actually the source behind my violent urges. At this, Suigetsu's eyes widened a bit in surprise. Wait, if nature chakra is the source of your violent urges, then wouldn't it be bad for you to be in a place rich with nature chakra like here? Asked Suigetsu. Yugo nodded his head. Normally, yes. I talked to Lady Shima, though, and she said that while my clan has been known to be thrown into murderous fits by nature chakra, because we're unconsciously intaking nature chakra, Mt. Mayaboku is always peaceful, and it seems to be containing my urges, rather than instigating them. Explained Yugo. Suigetsu nodded his head in understanding. Makes sense. Too bad, though, said Suigetsu as he got an evil grin. I like when you go berserk. It makes fighting you more fun. Yugo sighed as he shook his head. Meanwhile, Karen was watching Naruto with rapt attention as he meditated and attempted to intake as much nature chakra as possible. She saw as his eyelids and around his eyes turned orange, showing he was entering sage mode. However, his face started to turn into a toad's face, prompting Fukasaku to jump up and smack him on the head with his cane, breaking Naruto's focus and causing his face and eyes to change back to normal. Naruto hunched over and held his head in pain. Fucking son of a bitch. Naruto swore as he looked at Fukasaku with a glare, but said nothing more as he knew why Fukasaku kept hitting him to break his focus. He then sighed before resuming his stance. A few weeks later, Naruto still wearing his regular Hebe outfit, but changed the orange long-sleeved open shirt for a orange sleeveless open shirt with the Uzumaki swirl on the back, was standing before Fukasaku, who was perched on a rock. He still had bandages around his head and stomach. "All right, Naruto boy, let's see what you've got," said Fukasaku as he looked toward a large toad statue. "Lift that statue." Naruto nodded his head before closing his eyes. As he gathered the nature chakra around him, Naruto's eyelids and around his eyes turned orange. He then opened his eyes to reveal that the iris were gold instead of blue, and his pupils were now rectangular. He walked over to the statue and picked it up with one hand, earning surprised looks from his team and Shima. Suigetsu whistled, clearly impressed. "Whoa, not bad," said Suigetsu, who grabbed his sword off his back. "How about a little spar to see just how strong you are in that form?" And Naruto, the Jinchuriki, shook his head as he put the statue down and his eyes returned to normal. "No," said Naruto, "normal," as he looked towards Suigetsu. "I want Itachi to be the first to feel the full strength of my Sage Mode." Suigetsu sighed in disappointment as he put his sword on his back. Naruto then looked toward Fukasaku and Shima before bowing. "Thank you, Sage Gramps and Granny Toad, for everything," said Naruto. Fukasaku and Shima bowed. "It was just good to see you again, Naruto boy," said Fukasaku as he and Shima stood up straight at the same time as Naruto. "Won't you stay, lad? We're expecting Jiraiya boy to be here anytime now, and he would love to see you again," said Shima in an attempt to reach the young boy she had heard of from Jiraiya. Naruto's eyes widened for a second before he masked it with his usual expressionless mask and shook his head. "I'm sorry, Granny Toad, but I'm afraid not," said Naruto before turning to his teammates. "Get ready to head out." The other three members of Hebe nodded their heads as they approached Naruto. "Be careful, lad. I can sense things aren't as they seem," warned Fukasaku. Naruto nodded his head before biting his right thumb and slamming his hand on the ground. A seal appeared under Team Hebe's feet before smoke billowed out of the seal and consumed them. When the smoke cleared, Naruto and the rest of Hebe were gone. Fukasaku sighed. Dark times are ahead, and with his heart caught between light and darkness. "I only pray that Sasuke boy and Sakura lass can bring Naruto boy back to the light," thought Fukasaku. Naruto boy and Sasuke boy are this world's only chance of survival. Forest. A seal appeared on the ground before smoke billowed out of it. When the smoke cleared, Team Hebe was standing in a forest. "You know, Naruto, I've been meaning to ask, but how are you able to transport us to MT Mayaboku and back?" asked Suigetsu. Naruto looked towards Suigetsu with an expressionless look. "Summoning jutsu can work both ways," Naruto explained. "You can summon a summoning animal you made a contract with, but the animal can summon you also. It's called reverse summoning. While I was training under Orochimaru, I tried summoning Gamabunta, the toad I made a summoning contract with, to see if I could still summon him. However, I accidentally wound up reverse summoning myself to MT Mayaboku instead. That's where I met Sage Gramps and Granny Toad." Karen and Suigetsu nodded their heads in understanding. "Now, I want you three to search for more information on Itachi Uchiha. I don't care how small the information is." "Got it," said Naruto. Karen and Suigetsu nodded their heads. "Naruto," said Yugo. Naruto looked toward Yugo to see a bird on his shoulder. "What is it, Yugo?" asked Naruto. "I know this will sound stupid, but this bird told me that it's seen a man fitting Itachi's description here in the forest," said Yugo. Suigetsu sighed. "You're right, Yugo. It does sound stupid." "No, it sounds fucking stupid," said Suigetsu. "How the hell can a bird tell you where Itachi is? How can you even understand a bird?" "Quiet, Suigetsu," ordered Naruto. Suigetsu looked at Naruto in surprise. "What? I'm just stating the obvious," said Suigetsu. Naruto glared at Suigetsu. "I said Naruto as his eyes flashed red for a second. "Quiet." Suigetsu's eyes widened in shock as he slightly trembled in fear. "That was real killing intent just now," thought Suigetsu, who quickly grabbed his water bottle and took a large swig of water to cool down. Karen blushed as she looked at Naruto with a look of desire. Wow, that was really hot. You too, thought Karen. Naruto then looked at Yugo. I want you and the others to continue collecting information on Itachi while I check out your lead, said Naruto. Yugo nodded his head. Of course, but I apologize in advance if it turns out to be a waste of time, said Yugo. Naruto turned away from his teammates. Get going, ordered Naruto. With that, the other 3 members of Team Hebe disappeared. Once gone, Naruto headed deeper into the forest. Later, Naruto was walking through the forest when he came to an area that was surrounded by trees and the leaves blocked out the sky. He looked around the area for any sign of the Uchiha when, I'm surprised you came, Naruto said an all-too-familiar voice, causing Naruto to turn and see his target. Itachi, said Naruto with a glare as he gripped the handle of his katana. The rogue Uchiha looked at Naruto with an emotionless stare, his 3-tomo Sharingan active. Tell me, Naruto, what do you hope to gain by learning the truth of the Nine-Tails attack from 16 years ago, said Itachi. Naruto's glare hardened as he unsheathed his katana. Why does it matter? Asked Naruto, as he closed his eyes only for them to snap open a second later to reveal that the iris were red and the pupils were slits. You'll be dead by then. Naruto, Nine-Tails chakra, lunged at Itachi and swung his katana, but the Uchiha jumped back to avoid the blade. Itachi made a few hand seals before breathing deeply. Fire style. Great fireball jutsu, said Itachi as he blew a giant fireball at Naruto. The Jinchuriki held out his right hand and charged up a Rasengan. Rasengan! Shouted Naruto as he thrusted the Rasengan into the fireball, causing smoke to billow out when the 2 jutsus collided. Itachi watched the smoke, waiting for Naruto to come out. He didn't have to wait long, though, because Naruto leaped out of the smoke and toward the rogue Uchiha. Naruto swung his katana at Itachi. However, the Uchiha quickly leaned left to avoid the strike. Naruto then began rapidly swinging his katana with carefully aimed strikes, but Itachi proved faster, for he was able to avoid the strikes. To the untrained eye, it would seem like they were a blur. Naruto then caught an opening and stabbed the blade of his katana into Itachi's stomach. However, the Uchiha suddenly burst into thousands of crows that took to the air. The crows flew up high before nose-diving straight at Naruto from all sides. The Jinchuriki smirked as he sheathed his katana before both his hands became encased in lightning. Chidori stream, said Naruto as he discharged the Chidori from all over his body. The crows were instantly eradicated when they touched the electrical jutsu. Once all the crows were gone, Naruto ceased the Chidori stream before unsheathing his katana. He looked around for Itachi, only to hold his katana behind his back to block a few shuriken. Naruto pivoted on the heels of his ninja sandals to find an unharmed Itachi. The rogue Uchiha then threw a continuous barrage of shuriken at Naruto. However, the Jinchuriki quickly removed his arm guards to reveal bandages around his wrists that had storage seals on them. Resheathing his katana, Naruto pumped chakra to the seals, causing shuriken to appear in his hands before tossing his own continuous barrage of shuriken. As the shuriken continued to fly, Naruto and Itachi glared at each other with the determination to overpower the other. However, they both soon ceased throwing shuriken. Itachi spoke. You've gotten stronger, Naruto, said Itachi. Far stronger than I anticipated. However, it's still nothing I can't handle. Naruto's glare intensified. He couldn't believe Itachi thought he was still stronger than himself. Why don't you try saying that to me after I rip your jaw off? Said Naruto. Itachi just closed his eyes before he burst into thousands of crows that took to the skies. Come to the Uchiha hideout alone. There, we will finish this once and for all, said Itachi's voice before a crow perched itself on a tree branch. Naruto looked at the crow as his eyes returned to normal. Finally, I can end this nightmare, thought Naruto. Sasuke, Sakura, it won't be long now. Deciding to apologize to his fellow Hibi teammates later for ditching them, Naruto followed the crow as it flew off. Uchiha Hideout, outskirts. Naruto came to a cliff that overlooked the area, and he could see a large building in the distance. That must be the Uchiha Hideout. The Uchiha must have hideouts all over the 5 great nations, thought Naruto. He then took a step forward before immediately turning on his heels and unsheathing his katana to face none other than Kisame Hashigaki. Well, if it isn't the Nine Tails, said Kisame with his toothy grin. Naruto glared as his eyes flashed red for a second. Should have known Itachi would send you to at least weaken me, said Naruto. Kisame chuckled. Haha, as much as I would love to feed your chakra to shark skin, I'm afraid that isn't the case, said Kisame. I'm simply here to make sure no one interrupts you two's fight. Naruto continued to glare at Kisame, but he resheathed his katana. Whatever, but know this, said Naruto as he turned away from Kisame. If my team comes here and I find out you killed them while I was fighting, I will tear that smirk right off your fucking face. Got it, sharp breath, letting out just enough killing intent to get his point across. Naruto then leaped off of the cliff, landed on a tree branch, and began making his way to the Uchiha Hideout. Uchiha Hideout, entrance hall. As Naruto walked through the entrance hall of the Uchiha Hideout, memories of everyone he'd met along the way flashed before his eyes. Congratulations, Naruto. You pass. Iruka. I am made this and medicine for YU, Naruto. Hinata. Ninja who abandon their village are scum, but ninja who abandon their teammates are worse than scum. Kakashi. In a way, you're like Kimamaro's reincarnation. Yugo. Well, okay. Karen. I guess I do owe you for freeing me from that tank. All right, I'm in. Suigetsu. Gimme that Kanai kid. Zabuza. What is it that you want to protect most? Haku. You will come back to visit, right? Aoi. I want to fight you the most, Naruto. Sasuke. Don't go getting yourself hurt for no reason, idiot. Sakura. Naruto watched his memories flash before his eyes like a movie, and with each one that came and went, Naruto's resolve only strengthened. I will beat Itachi, so that way everyone can smile and laugh again. And so that way no one will follow the same path I have walked. Thought Naruto, come out Itachi. Uchiha Hideout, throne room. Naruto walked into the throne room of the Uchiha Hideout to find Itachi seated upon the throne. I finally found you, Itachi, said Naruto as he gripped the handle of his katana. The Uchiha opened his eyes to reveal his Mangekyo Sharingan was activate. You actually came. I'm honestly surprised, said Itachi. But before you attempt to kill me, let me tell you about who really instigated the Nine Tails attack on the Leaf 16 years ago. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise that Itachi was going to tell him the truth behind the Nine Tails assault. The man behind the Nine Tails attack was none other than Madara Uchiha, said Itachi. Naruto got a look of questioning. Madara Uchiha, asked Naruto, who the hell is that? Itachi leaned his elbow on the arm of the throne as he leaned his head against his fist. I should have expected you not to know who Madara is. You aren't of the Uchiha clan after all, said Itachi. Madara Uchiha is a former member of the Uchiha clan. He and the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, were the founders of the village hidden in the leaves. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise once again at this news. You're saying that Madara Uchiha is the one who instigated the Nine Tails attack 16 years ago? Asked Naruto. That's impossible. If he was one of the founders of the Hidden Leaf, then he would be dead by now. Itachi just looked on before responding. Your assumption that Madara is dead is false. He is very much alive, for he is an immortal man who plans to bring the world under his rule, said Itachi. He is also my mentor and the one who aided me in the massacre of the Uchiha clan. Naruto's eyebrows furrowed in anger. You had no right to kill off your entire clan for the sake of power, said Naruto. They were innocent people. Itachi actually chuckled at this. Innocent? Is that what you believe? Asked Itachi. Having heard enough, Naruto stepped forward and challenged. I don't care what your reasons for killing off your clan were. Once I'm done with you, then I'll deal with this Madara Uchiha, said Naruto. But first, I want to see you dead at my feet. Me? Dead at your feet? Said Itachi before he disappeared. He then reappeared behind Naruto with his back to the Jinchurikis. Let's get to it, said Itachi. Naruto smirked as his eyes flashed red for a second. The two drew a kunai each before quickly turning around, leaping back and tossing the kunai at each other. The kunai met in the middle and struck each other before Naruto quickly unsheathed his katana and dashed at Itachi. He swung his katana at Itachi, but the Uchiha leaned left to avoid the strike. Naruto, however, followed it up with another swing, but Itachi, predicting this, leaped back. As he landed on the ground, Itachi looked up in time to see several Naruto shadow clones appear, and I bet you thought I forgot about this Naruto special, didn't ya? With Razengans in hand. All the clones rushed at Itachi with their jutsu, using arms cocked back. Rasengan Mega Barrage, shouted all the clones as they thrusted their jutsu, using arms forward. However, Itachi quickly wove through hand seals and took a deep breath. Fire style, great fireball jutsu, shouted Itachi as he blew a large fireball at the clones. The fireball impacted with the shadow clones, causing a large explosion. Itachi watched the cloud of smoke for any sign of Naruto, but suddenly was blown to the left by a blow to the jaw. Itachi quickly righted himself and landed on the ground before skidding to a stop. He then looked up only for his eyes to widen slightly in surprise. There stood Naruto, but the area around his eyes were orange and his iris were gold with rectangular pupils. That's, thought Itachi. However, he didn't have time to contemplate Naruto's new power for the Jinchuriki, quickly charged a Rasengan in both hands and rushed at Itachi. As he reached the rogue Uchiha, Naruto thrusted both Rasengans into Itachi's stomach. Rasengan Barrage, shouted Naruto as the jutsu impacted with Itachi's stomach. However, the Uchiha suddenly burst into thousands of crows. Naruto watched as the crows flew a good few feet from him before they reformed into Itachi. The Uzumaki growled in irritation as the curse mark overtook the left half of his face and caused the orange around his left eye to turn purple. Is that the best you've got? Asked Itachi with the same emotionless stare. I'll show you my rage. My hatred, shouted Naruto, Sage Mode / Curse Mark First State, as his right hand became encased in lightning. He then rushed at Itachi and thrusted the Chidori forward, but the Uchiha again burst into thousands of crows. The crows flew away from Naruto before they reformed into Itachi. I need to cast Tsukuyami on him. Once I've done that, then this battle will be over and the Nine Tails will belong to Akatsuki, thought Itachi. However, when he looked back toward Naruto, he found the Jinchuriki was gone. Where did he? Thought Itachi as he looked around for the Uzumaki. His eyes then widened as he quickly looked up to see Naruto falling towards him with a Rasengan in his right hand. However, this one was different from the others because this one was encased in lightning. I made this jutsu just for you, Itachi, shouted Naruto as he thrusted the lightning Rasengan at the rogue Uchiha. Lightning style, Rasen Kidori. The Rasen Kidori slammed into Itachi before a pillar of lightning shot to the ceiling. As the pillar of lightning dissipated, Naruto landed on his feet a few feet away and watched. His eyes returned to normal as the curse mark receded back to its original position. I used up the rest of my nature chakra to form that Rasen Kidori, but I think I got him, thought Naruto. Suddenly, a kunai shot out of the lightning pillar and struck his right eye as it sailed by. Arg! Naruto cried out in pain as he covered his bleeding eye. Looking back at the pillar, his lone eye widened when the pillar of lightning completely dissolved to reveal Itachi Uchiha still standing. But he was bleeding from several cuts. His Akatsuki cloak was a little charred, and his left hand was limp at his side, indicating that it was probably useless now. Naruto also noticed that Itachi had his eyes closed before seeing blood leak out of the left eye. Itachi's left Mangekyo Sharingan eye then snapped open. Amaterasu! Shouted Itachi as black flames erupted from the ground and sped at Naruto. The Uzumaki quickly turned and dashed ahead of the flames to avoid them. He leaped on top of the throne before leaping off of it and toward the hole his Raisen Kidori made in the roof of the hideout. However, the black flames of the Amaterasu caught the edge of Naruto's shirt. Noticing it quickly, Naruto tore off his orange sleeveless open shirt and tossed it away as it was consumed in the black flames. The Uzumaki landed on the roof before leaping onto a large wall-like structure with the Uchiha clan insignia on it. Storm clouds had gathered in the sky above the hideout, and the thunder boomed as Itachi appeared on the roof and looked up toward Naruto. Both ninja were breathing hard from their battle. Naruto held up his right hand as a Rasengan formed. However, four wind-nature chakra blades came out of it and began rotating around it before it became encased in lighting. The jutsu then increased to 3 times its normal size. Itachi watched on in amazement. He couldn't believe that the loudmouth, knucklehead who always went on about becoming Hokage had become so strong. For a split second, Itachi believed that Naruto may have surpassed even himself. "This will probably be my last jutsu," said Naruto. Combination jutsu. Giant lightning Raisen Shuriken. With that, Naruto threw the lightning Raisen Shuriken at Itachi. The rogue Uchiha went wide-eyed at the speed the jutsu was traveling. Naruto quickly leapt out of the way as the jutsu impacted with the hideout roof, and hopefully its target, before turning into a large rotating sphere of wind and lightning chakra that completely obliterated the Uchiha hideout. When the jutsu dissipated and the smoke cleared, Naruto landed in the ruins of the Uchiha hideout to find Itachi laying on the ground face first. His Akatsuki cloak was gone, no doubt destroying the jutsu, and he wore a similar outfit to Deidara's underneath the cloak, the only difference being that the shirt had the Uchiha crest on the back. Naruto dropped to his knees and breathed a sigh of relief as he placed a hand over his right ruined eye. "It's over," said Naruto. "It's finally over." The Uzumaki was relieved that it was all finally over. Now, he could locate his teammates and... "Is this the death you had imagined for me?" Naruto asked an all-too-familiar voice, causing Naruto's eye to widen in shock as he looked toward where Itachi had been laying to see the Uchiha standing again. But this time there was a large, strange red warrior behind him wielding a glowing red blade attached to a red gourd and a red shield. The warrior had 4 arms, and its face was hidden in the shadows under a hood ornament that resembled a demon mask. The warrior's eyes were a glowing yellow, and, for exact description, look up the fight between Sasuke and Itachi in Naruto Shippuden. "Hey Chow, why you're supposed to be dead," said Naruto as he quickly stood up. "You're right. I would have been dead if it weren't for this," said Itachi as he motioned toward the strange warrior. "This is my final trump card, the Susanoo." Naruto stared wide-eyed at Itachi's Susanoo. "The Susanoo?" asked Naruto. Itachi nodded his head. "Yes, it is the final power of the Mangekyo Sharingan," said Itachi. "This third power is awakened when one has awakened both the Tsukuyomi and the Amaterasu." Itachi's emotionless stare then changed to a glare. "Once I've dealt with you, I will use this power to destroy the Hidden Leaf Village," said Itachi. "I will kill everyone. No one will be spared. I will take my brother's eyes, and with them, I will gain new ocular powers." Naruto's eye widened further before a glare replaced his shocked expression. Images of all his old friends' corpses lying everywhere flashed before Naruto's eye. As the images continued to bombard Naruto, red chakra began to seep out of his body. However, something inside Naruto snapped as the images of Sasuke and Sakura lying on the ground before him dead flashed before his eyes. Screamed Naruto as a pillar of red chakra shot to the sky. Itachi watched on as the red chakra pillar dissipated to reveal Naruto in his nine tails, four-tailed state. "How much do you hate me?" asked Itachi. Suddenly, two more tails sprouted for Naruto, and a fox skull formed on top of his head, while skeletal fox arms and paws formed on his arms and legs. Naruto, nine tails, six-tail mode, then got down on all fours as he growled at Itachi. "So that's the appearance you take when using 6 tails worth of the fox's chakra," said Itachi as he backed into his Susanoo and was engulfed in it. "Show me which is greater, my Susanoo or the 9 tails." Roared the six-tailed Naruto. The out-of-the-control Jinchuriki then leaped at Itachi, but the Uchiha's Susanoo brought its shield down in front of him. Naruto, however, smashed right into the shield, causing it to crack. Itachi's eyes widened in surprise. "He cracked the Yata mirror?" thought Itachi. Naruto then leaped back as Itachi's Susanoo swung its sword down. The Jinchuriki then held his head up as his 6 tails curled toward the head as a black ball of chakra formed. "A tailed beast bomb," thought Itachi as a Susanoo lunged its sword forward, striking the 6-tailed Naruto and sending him flying back into some rubble, breaking the tailed beast bomb in the process. However, that didn't keep Naruto down for the rubble. He was blown and blew apart before the out-of-control Jinchuriki dashed at Itachi with incredible speed. If it weren't for Itachi's Sharingan, then he wouldn't have been able to see Naruto coming. Naruto reached Itachi and swung a clawed hand at him, shattering the Yata mirror shield. Itachi's Susanoo, however, struck Naruto and sent the Jinchuriki flying back. The Susanoo then held out its upper left hand before strange red beads, shaped like the tomos of the Sharingan, appeared. "Yasaka Magatama," shouted Itachi as his Susanoo flung the beads toward Naruto. The Jinchuriki was struck by the beads and sent flying back further before landing in more rubble. Itachi watched the rubble for any sign of Naruto's reemergence. However, he was thrown into a violent coughing fit, his body beginning to succumb to the effects of using the Susanoo and the overuse of his Mangekyo Sharingan. Once the coughing fit was over, Itachi looked toward the rubble with blurry vision. Suddenly, 8 large tails emerged from the rubble, followed by a large fox with no skin, all the muscle exposed, and red eyes with slitted pupils. "So you finally appear." "9 tails," said Itachi. Roared Naruto, 9 tails, 8-tail mode, causing the entire area to shake from the force. Naruto's inner mind. Naruto, normal, was on his knees before the cage that kept the 9-tailed fox sealed inside him. The seal on Naruto's stomach had become a gaping hole as blood poured out. 9 Tails chuckled evilly as it approached the bars of its cage. The 9-tailed fox was a large fox with orange fur and had red eyes with slitted pupils. "Ha ha ha, that's it, Naruto. Give me your soul, and I'll kill whoever you want," said 9 Tails. "Now rip this damn seal off and release me from this prison." Naruto stood, not in control of his actions, and walked over to the cage before floating up to the paper on the door with the kanji for seal on it. He then grabbed the paper and began to rip it off. "I don't think so," said a voice as a man with blonde spiky hair, blue eyes, and wore the standard Jonin uniform, but wore a white cloak with red flames at the bottom and a blue hidden leaf headband around his forehead, appeared. He grabbed Naruto's right arm that held on to the paper seal, breaking the Jinchuriki from his trance. Naruto looked at the man only to go wide-eyed. "Fourth Hokage?" asked Naruto, who couldn't believe that the deceased 4th Hokage was here in his mind. Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage, looked at Naruto with a smile. "Well, yes and no," said Minato. "I worked my chakra into the seal so that I would appear the moment you sprouted the 8th tail, though honestly, I'd hoped it would never come to this." At this, Minato's smile faltered slightly, but it brightened back up instantly. "However," I got to meet my son as a young man. So it all evens out, said Minato. My, how you grow, Naruto? Naruto stared at Minato in confusion. Wait, how the hell do you know my name? Asked Naruto. Ninetales roared in pure anger. You, fourth Hokage, get your ASS over here, so I can RIP you to shreds, roared Ninetales. Minato looked toward the infuriated Ninetales with a glare. Well, if that's how you're going to invite someone, then I'll pass, said Minato before looking back at Naruto with a smile. Why don't we go somewhere more private? With that said, Minato snapped his fingers, causing the entire area to be bathed in bright light. As for how I know your name, well, that should be obvious. I did name you, after all, said Minato. Naruto's look of confusion only grew before everything clicked and his eye widened in shock. Then that means you're my... Naruto trailed off as everything began to sink in. Minato's smile only grew as he nodded his head. That's right. I'm your father, said Minato. Naruto continued to look at Minato in shock before a small smile formed on his lips. However, that smile was short-lived as it changed to a frown as Naruto glared at Minato before punching him in the stomach, causing the former fourth Hokage to cough up blood as he hunched over in pain. Once he recovered, Minato stood up straight and looked at Naruto only to be met with glaring blue eyes. How the hell could you put something like the fucking nine-tailed fox inside your own son? Naruto exclaimed. Minato looked at Naruto in surprise before looking away in shame. I did it because I couldn't ask any of the other villagers to give up their children to become a Jinchuriki. But most importantly, I did it because I thought you would be able to master the power of the Nine Tails, said Minato. But I should have taken into account how much suffering you were going to go through. That's why you become a rogue ninja. Naruto's angry look turned to one of surprise. How the hell did you dash? Asked Naruto. I was able to see everything from your mind, said Minato. I've seen everything you've gone through, from your first day in the ninja academy to now. Naruto looked away from Minato with a glare. Then you probably hate me, too, right? Asked Naruto. He then felt a hand on his head, causing him to look at Minato, only to see the fourth Hokage smiling. Absolutely not. While I don't agree with the path you've chosen, nothing you could do would make how I feel about you change, said Minato. You are my son, and I love you. Faults and all. Naruto's eye widened in shock at hearing his father's words. He looked into Minato's blue eyes, which were the same shade of blue as his own, and found no hint of deceit, only love and understanding. Naruto felt tears welling up in his eyes, but fought to keep them down. Dad, asked Naruto, gaining Minato's attention. Is what Itachi said true? Did Madara instigate the Nine Tails attack 16 years ago? Minato sighed as he nodded his head. While he wore a mask, I'm positive it was Madara Uchiha who caused the Nine Tails to attack the leaf, said Minato. He then noticed that he was starting to disappear. Looks like my time is up. My chakra is running out, said Minato. Listen to me, Naruto. Dark times are ahead. Be wary of the masked member of the Akatsuki. Naruto's eye widened slightly at the mention of that Toby guy. Minato placed his right hand on the open seal on Naruto's stomach. I will rebuild the seal, for the last time, said Minato. He then twisted Naruto's stomach, causing the Jinchuriki to wince in pain. When he removed his hand, the seal was back to its original swirl pattern. Thank you for everything, said Naruto. Dad, Minato smiled as he disappeared. Real world. Itachi stared at the now normal Naruto, who was panting with a few burns along his body from his use of the Nine Tails chakra. How could he have mastered the Nine Tails power? Thought Itachi. No, he merely suppressed it. Suddenly, Naruto's eye turned red with the pupil becoming a slit as the curse mark overtook his entire body. His hair grew to waist length and became a sickly pale orange. His skin turned gray. He had a black X on the bridge of his nose. His nails resembled claws, and his canine teeth resembled fangs. Webbed, hand-like wings protruded from his back. Naruto dropped to his knees as he grabbed his left shoulder. His remaining eye suddenly turned gold. I can lend you power, said a familiar voice in Naruto's head. Didami. The chakra I was using to suppress Orochimaru is gone, thought Naruto. Ninetales chakra / curse marks second state, as his body began to convulse uncontrollably. I can't control Orochimaru. Suddenly, a large 8-headed white snake came out of Naruto's back. Orochimaru's 8-headed serpent jutsu, said Itachi. So, it finally emerges. One of the heads opened its before Orochimaru emerged. Ha 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 ha. Orochimaru laughed. Thanks to you, Itachi, this Jinchuriki brat's suppressing chakra is gone. Now I can take over his BOA. ARRRRRGGHHHH. Orochimaru was interrupted when Itachi's Susanoo impaled him with its sword. Orochimaru looked at the blade with wide eyes. It can't be, said Orochimaru. All this time that I've been searching for the fabled Totsuka blade, you had it? Indeed. Now, Orochimaru, you will be sealed away. Forever, said Itachi as he made a single-hand seal. Suddenly, Orochimaru and his 8-headed serpent were drawn into the gourd that Itachi's Susanoo had. Once the vile snake Sannin was sealed and removed from Naruto, the Jinchuriki's features returned to normal and the curse mark faded away. Naruto, normal, sighed in relief now that he didn't have to deal with the constant pain in his left shoulder anymore. As he stood up, with great difficulty due to chakra exhaustion and the injuries he suffered while going berserk from the Ninetales influence, Naruto looked toward Itachi to see the rogue Uchiha limping toward him with his Susanoo still around him. It's over, said Itachi. Naruto's eye widened in fear, something he hadn't felt in years. Shit, what do I do? I'm all out of chakra, and I don't have the curse mark anymore, thought Naruto. He then got a look of determination as he unsheathed his katana. He ran at Itachi and stabbed the blade of his sword into the Susanoo. However, it quickly repelled the blade, knocking it from Naruto's hand. The force of the repulsion launched Naruto back. He landed on the ground hard before quickly pushing himself to his feet. Damn it, thought Naruto before he pulled out a kunai with a bomb tag attached to it. Fine, I am disparate. With that, Naruto hurled the kunai at Itachi. It struck the Uchiha Susanoo before the bomb tag blew up. However, when the smoke cleared, it revealed Itachi to still be stand, albeit barely, with the Susanoo still active. Naruto went wide-eyed in fear as he backed away from the approaching Uchiha. However, his back hit something, causing him to look away for a split second to see it was a wall. Naruto looked back toward Itachi to see the Uchiha getting closer and closer. As Itachi neared Naruto, he reached out with his right hand. And now, Naruto, said Itachi. His hand was nearly able to reach Naruto. However, Itachi suddenly smiled and mouthed something before he pressed his right index and middle fingers against Naruto's forehead, causing the Jinchuriki's eye to widen in shock. Itachi then collapsed to the ground, his fingers leaving a small trail of blood on Naruto's face, before rolling over on his back and drawing his last breath. As Naruto looked down at Itachi, he recalled a memory he had forgotten. Flashback. A younger Naruto was walking back to his apartment after training in the training grounds. It was dark out, and he needed some sleep. As he was walking, he noticed Sasuke's older brother, Itachi, walking toward him. He only knew Itachi because of how Sasuke always talked about him and had only met him a couple times in person. Hey Itachi, said Naruto as he approached the young EMBU captain. Where you off to? He then noticed something. And why are you crying? Asked Naruto. Itachi looked at the young Uzumaki in surprise before wiping his tears. No reason, said Itachi. What are you doing out so late, Naruto? The young Uzumaki just grinned. I was at the training grounds training, said Naruto. I've got to get stronger if I'm going to become Hokage one day. Itachi smiled a sad smile as he nodded his head and poked Naruto's forehead with 2 fingers. I'm certain that one day you'll become an amazing Hokage, Naruto, said Itachi as he activated his Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto gave Itachi a questioning look before everything went dark. Flashback end. That explains why he was crying, thought Naruto. That was the night he. However, Naruto didn't get to finish that thought, for his body succumbed to its injuries, and he collapsed to the ground unconscious. A swirling distortion then formed before Toby appeared. He looked down at the unconscious Nine-Tails Jinchuriki and then at the dead Uchiha. "So, you actually beat him," said Toby. "Now what to do with you?" "Nine-Tails." Toby then picked up Naruto's unconscious form with ease and slung him over his shoulder before disappearing via the distortion. Sometime later, Naruto's left eye cracked open and he found himself in a place he didn't recognize. Sitting up, Naruto found himself in a dimly lit room, the only source of light being a candle sitting beside him on the nightstand. "Where am I?" thought Naruto. "It's good to see you're awake, Naruto Uzumaki," said a voice, causing Naruto to whip his head to the left and see Toby leaned with his back against the wall and his arms crossed over his chest. "You're the Toby guy that was with Deidara," said Naruto. Toby nodded his head. "Yes, but before you jump to conclusions, I do not seek vengeance for Deidara's death," said Toby. "I brought you here and tended to your injuries." At this, Naruto looked at himself to find his torso and his arms bandaged. He then felt his forehead and found that his head was bandaged as well as his damaged right eye. "Then why did you bring me here?" asked Naruto. "You could have just extracted Nine-Tails from me in my weakened state." Toby nodded his head at this. "True, but I brought you here to tell you the truth," said Toby. Naruto gave him a questioning look. "The truth?" asked Naruto as Toby pushed off the wall. "Yes, the truth," said Toby, "of the Uchiha clan massacre and of the purpose of the Jinchuriki." Naruto's eyebrows flew into his hair before they furrowed in anger. "Firstly, why would I care about the truth of the Uchiha clan massacre? And secondly, I don't care about the true purpose of a Jinchuriki," said Naruto. Toby chuckled. Then perhaps if I reintroduce myself, then maybe you'll listen," said Toby. He then grabbed a hold of his orange swirl mask. "You know me as Toby, but that name is just an alias," said Toby as he moved his mask off his face just enough to where the right side of it was visible. It was twisted in a swirl similar to his mask. He then opened his right eye to reveal a 3-tomo Sharingan. "My name is Madara Uchiha," said Toby, causing Naruto's eye to widen in shock. However, Naruto's left eye turned into Itachi's left Mangekyo Sharingan eye. Madara's visible eye widened before he was set ablaze by the Amaterasu. Madara screamed in agonizing pain as he backed away into the darker part of the room. Naruto cringed as his left eye changed back to normal and he covered it. What the hell?" asked Naruto. He then heard chuckling before Madara walked back into the candlelight, his mask fixed back over his face and seemingly unharmed. "It would seem Itachi wanted to make sure I didn't speak to you, so he transferred his power to you and made it to where the Amaterasu would kill me the moment I showed you my Sharingan," said Madara. "Even in death, he never ceases to amaze." "Why do you care about telling me the truth?" asked Naruto as he glared at Madara. "You're the one who caused the Nine-Tails attack 16 years ago." Madara chuckled at this. "True, but the fourth Hokage stopped me, so it doesn't matter," said Madara. "What matters is the here and now." Naruto scoffed. "Spare me and just get the extraction over with," said Naruto as he looked away. "The real reason Itachi killed his entire clan wasn't because he wanted power," said Madara as he chose to tell Naruto whether the Jinchuriki wanted to hear it or not. "It was because the Uchiha clan were planning a coup d'etat against the Hidden Leaf." This caught Naruto's attention as he looked at Madara with a questioning look. "Why would the Uchiha clan want to turn against the Hidden Leaf?" asked Naruto. He just couldn't believe that Sasuke's clan would want to turn against the very village they helped found. They felt that they were slowly having their power over the village stripped away from them, explained Madara. However, Itachi was against this. He pleaded with his parents, who were the leaders of the coup, but they wouldn't listen. They were willing to make the Leaf vulnerable with infighting to get their power back. Other villages would see the leaf in its weakened state due to the coup and attack. And if that were to happen, then the hidden leaf would fall. Naruto glared down at the sheets of his makeshift bed. "Did Sasuke know about it?" asked Naruto. Madara shook his head. "No, he was too young at the time, and his parents didn't want him involved should the coup fail," said Madara. Eventually, Itachi found himself torn between his clan and his village. But in the end, he chose his village over his clan. This caused Naruto to look back at Madara with surprise more than evident in his eye. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, gave Itachi the mission to wipe out the Uchiha clan, said Madara, causing Naruto's breath to hitch in his throat. He couldn't understand why Old Man Third would give an order like that. Yeah, the Uchiha's coup was a big threat, but surely there were other options besides destroying the Uchiha clan. And so, he killed every man, woman, and child of the Uchiha clan, even his own parents, but alas, he could not kill his little brother. To him, Sasuke's life was more precious than even the village, said Madara. He walked the path of darkness and accepted his fate. He intended for his little brother to kill him, but when he found that his brother was slowly letting go of his thirst for vengeance, he turned to you. Naruto's eyebrows disappeared into the bangs of his hair. "Why me?" asked Naruto. Madara chuckled. "Ha ha ha, because you had Orochimaru's curse mark, and it was tearing away the mask you put up every day to hide your true emotions. He knew how you were treated, so he thought that if the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki could kill the one who destroyed the Uchiha clan, then maybe the village would treat you better," said Madara. "But he never considered the idea that you would leave the village. And so he died praying that no one would find out the truth," said Madara. Naruto looked at his hands, unable to believe he took the life of a man who didn't truly deserve what he got. All he did was try to protect the village he loved, and in the end his reward for everything was death. "As for the purpose of a Jinchuriki," said Madara, gaining Naruto's attention, "they are meant to be nothing more than weapons for war. Weapons without a will of their own. And if they dared to try an act of their own free will, then the tailed beast they contained would be extracted, killing the Jinchuriki, and it would be placed inside a more cooperative vessel." Naruto's eyebrows once again disappeared into his hair. I was nothing but a weapon to the leaf. The very village I wanted to become Hokage of saw me as nothing but a weapon, thought Naruto as he looked back down at his hand in his lap. "However," said Madara, "if you had the power of the Uchiha clan, I can assure you that you'd be free to do as you please, without any worry whatsoever. I can give you the power of the Uchiha, and all I ask in return is that, when the time comes, you lend me the power of the Nine-Tails." Madara then placed his gloved right hand on Naruto's left shoulder. "What do you say?" asked Madara. Naruto continued to stare at his lap, while letting all this information sink in. However, he then looked toward the wall ahead of him with a glare. Several weeks later, Team Hebe was on cliff overlooking the sea. Yugo was standing a few feet away from Naruto, while Suigetsu was seated on a rock. Karen was seated on the ground. Madara, who had housed Team Hebe, was watching Naruto as the Jinchuriki was overlooking the ocean with the sun setting in the distance. Naruto's outfit hadn't really changed other than the fact that he now wore an orange short-sleeve zip-up shirt with a high collar that he had zipped up to the middle of his torso. It also had the Uzumaki swirl on the back. Naruto's hair had also grown a little longer to where the bangs now slightly obscured his eyes from vision. However, the Jinchuriki was silently crying as tears ran down his face. Why was he crying, you ask? Well, while he was recovering, Madara had informed him that the leaf had sent Jiraiya to the village hidden in the rain and that he had died at the hands of Pain, the figurehead leader of the Akatsuki. Madara told Naruto that he had informed Pain not to kill Jiraiya, but Pain had no choice when he had given Jiraiya many chances to leave with his life, and the Toad Sannin refused and instead attacked the figurehead leader. Madara claimed the leaf knew that Jiraiya most likely wouldn't survive, but sent him regardless. Now, a heartbroken Naruto stood on the cliff silently weeping for the only father figure he had had in his life. Karen, worried for her team captain, stood up and approached him carefully. "Naruto, are you okay?" asked Karen. "We have Hebe." Naruto began, causing Karen to stop at her tracks after only taking 2 steps. "Have shed the skin of the snake, and have taken the form of a fox. From now on, we will be known as Kitsune." Naruto raised his head a little. "Team Kitsune has but one goal," said Naruto. He then opened his eyes to reveal a Mangekyo Sharingan in his right eye. Naruto's Mangekyo Sharingan was 3 red, stretched triangles evenly spaced around the pupil that each curve around the top of the eye to form a circle with a black iris. And basically, it looks like Obito and Kakashi's Mangekyo Sharingan, but the colors are inverted. "The destruction of the hidden leaf," said Naruto as he glared at the sunset.